Yeah, I mean, Mark O'Brien, thank you very much. We're now live, and thank you for coming onto the podcast. I know we've been trying to sort out a date. I think we've had to
Yeah.
push it a couple of times. Everybody's busy. That's the whole point. Life gets in the way of things.
No,
Um, so I came across you. Actually, followed me for a change rather than me following somebody else, which was quite refreshing. And then when I got a chance to sit down and look at your story and what you've been through, and from somebody that's sort of been in the world of football for 20 odd years, and I've recently just made the switch from football to hockey, of all sports, which
nice.
I've actually enjoyed. I mean, your story's really, it holds a lot of gravity, it holds a lot of weight, but it also holds a lot of hope and redemption as well at the same time. You've lived a very, I wouldn't say colourful life, but it's very eventful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'd say it's very eventful. I always call it the roller coaster of a life that I've had in such a short span of living away from Ireland. Like, I think everything has just kind of all happened at once. Like, from the best of times that I've ever had through football and different experiences to the worst of times with the open heart surgeries. And like, I used to always like look back at it and try and disregard certain bits of it because you only want to remember the good and forget the bad type things. But I think I've learned over the last couple of years now, since I've retired, to kind of embrace it all, that it's all led me to this position, regardless of what I've been through, has all led me to where I am today. And I think that is something that probably stands to me a lot more for the way that I see things than it did probably a long time ago when you try so hard to forget.
Yeah, it's usually like there's a really good line in. I mean, I love movies. There's a really good line in The Day After Tomorrow. That's The Day After Tomorrow. What is it? It's The Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves, where it's mentioned like only on the precipice of destruction does humanity get the motivation to change. And I
Yeah.
think that's the same with people, is the fact it's only in the bad times and the point, the point where you hit rock bottom, or you have life changing injuries or conditions or circumstances that forces you to change who you are. If things are going good and things are all singing or dancing, you're not wanting to change because it's all gravy, and you want to keep the gravy train rolling. You don't want to move or change anything. So I think the negative stuff is the stuff that generally makes you who you are at this point.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And I always think of the same things. It's like you say, you always think you're defined over because good things happen to you. You think, oh, was it? This is the way I always want to see life. But I think when the bad stuff has happened, it has made me realize that that is probably what spurred me on to so many more things. Like when I had my very first open heart surgery at 16, it was
Which is
always
that's
which
just, it's crazy. When I read that, and I always like, I consult with my daughter's 10, and I consult with her on like every guest that comes on, and she couldn't quite comprehend it.
yeah, no,
And it's
it is.
bonkers.
It's a mad story, but it's like I say, when I had that at 16, that kind of spurred me on towards football more than probably the love I had for football at the beginning. Like, and I
Right.
loved football growing up, but it was almost kind of like it gave me that little bit of an edge that no matter what came at me in football, if I was able to recover from open heart surgery and get back playing, it was almost made me that little bit more stronger in my mind to think, well, yeah, it might be another tough time along the way, but if I can get back from that, I can get back from this. And then if
Yeah.
I can get back from that, then I can do the next thing. And there was just nothing that was ever going to stand in my way. And I said, the only thing that was ever going to stop me would have been the heart issue. There wouldn't have been anything else. Like, I've had ACL injuries, I've had broken bones, I've had all the injuries that you can get. I've had setbacks with difference of opinions in football and all of the normal political side of football. But there was nothing that was going to ever stop me from saying, okay, well, then I'll just find the next opinion that matters and I'll keep on going until I can't go anymore type feeling. And as I said, it didn't steer me wrong. Even as much as having open heart surgery at 16, I wouldn't want to wish it upon anybody.
Mm.
It did give me that extra little bit of something that maybe I probably wouldn't have had, but like, I'm not someone here to second guess it because I wouldn't know any different. So I look at it now and say that that was probably a great part for me, even though it was the most difficult time. And
Mm.
as you say, I think over time now, and especially when I retired over the second open heart surgery, it was something that I wish I had the mindset that I've got now, probably on the outlook on life, because of going through the difficult stuff with depression and going through panic attacks and going through certain health anxieties and all these different things that, look, I think everybody knows the label of them, but nobody actually understands it to a full extent.
Mm.
Like I used to see when people used to say they're depressed, I used to think, oh, well, just do something that makes you happy. And to me,
Yeah.
that would have been my first answer to anybody. But I understood that it's like something not as simple, like, and it's the minor signs of it, like not wanting to get out of bed or just feeling constantly tired. And then I looked back through certain parts of my career, and I thought, well, potentially, like I was feeling that at some points, and I understand it a little bit more. But why I'm such a big advocate of just like speaking so openly about stuff is because I feel as though I've been able to turn my life back to being a success and more
Mm.
mentally more than anything. Like I just never gave up on myself. Rather than thinking I had to distract myself and do a million and one other things to forget about everything, I've just embraced it all to kind of think, well, this is all part of me and there's no point in me being afraid of it anymore.
Yeah,
Because the
I think we've all got people within our lives that have been touched by either bad illnesses, whether that be the big C or whether it be strokes or open heart surgery, anything along those lines. And I think we've all had people in our lives that have kind of done what you've done, which is turn it almost into a sword and shield, and it becomes almost your motivation and your driving force. But then we've also had, and I know from personal experience that I mean, not me, but I've had people within my family that have had like strokes that have gone the opposite way of like the oh why has it happened to me? Why is this why didn't it happen to like somebody that's a criminal? Why is it? And then what I've tended to find, and this is not always the case, is the person that goes down that route tends to get worse and doesn't really
yeah,
recover as well. And then the person that does something what you've done tends to get back to where they were, and if not, improve on where they were. I mean, Carl Jones, who was the first guest that I had on the podcast, he's a stroke survivor, and he's now he's crazy. He's now running ultra marathons at like 100 and 200 miles, which he's doing the Welsh Coastal Path this year, uh, fastest known time, which is like 800 plus miles. And I've just said to him, "There's no way I'm coming to join you." I
yeah,
said, "I might support you, but I'm not running with you whatsoever." But yeah, it's like he's had a stroke, decided to turn it into something like a strength, and I mean, he never ran majorly before having a stroke, and now he's turned it into this superpower. But then I've also had friends and family that have had strokes and just deteriorated to the point of being unrecognizable. Um, and I suppose like what you're saying is you're almost thankful that it happened because it's made you into either the player, the person that you are now. Whereas if it hadn't have happened, you know, life might have taken you in a completely different direction.
yeah, exactly. And I think I'm more than thankful for everything, because to be where I'm at right now in my life and to see things how I see it, like my life has become very simplified, and as simplified as I can make it by the simple thing of saying that I can wake up in the morning is makes my day. Now, I
Mm.
don't say that I wake up and see sunshine and rainbows and everything is so sparkly around me. Like we all still go through, oh, well, it's been a bit of a rough day and different things like that. But just I started to learn now that everything from waking up in the morning to what I do with me day, even if it's the same day, it's a choice on how I want to see it. So
Yeah.
even if something negative does happen, it's still my choice whether I wanted to allow that to affect me or not to allow it to affect me.
That
And
perspective is it's such a powerful tool to have. Shifting your perspective on stuff. I constantly sort of try and instill that into my daughter in terms of the fact that when she comes with something negative that's happened at school or even in her hockey games or whatever, it's like, yeah, but what I want you to do now is think of 3 positive things that have come out of that situation instead.
Yeah, a million
So
percent. And I've seen it where, like I say, I went through the opposite side of it, where, like you say, the whole deterioration of seeing negative and negative and negative, and I was basically scared of my own shadow, like, because
oh,
I was so protective of myself, and I gave up on myself in a sense of I was afraid of my own body because I was trying to be so protective of going, this has to be perfect now going forward because I've had the heart surgery, and I was seeing it so differently than when I was 16. And you're kind of naive at 16. You just jump straight back in and don't think twice of anything. Whereas when I was 27, it's like you sit there and you're trying to calculate, right, well, if I go out walking, is that too much of a strain? And you're starting to understand everything, but I was understanding it all for the negative ways.
yes.
And then once I started to understand it, where, yeah, I didn't want to leave my apartment and I didn't want to do things. And it was during COVID. So the world wasn't right
Yeah.
at the time. And that was
Yeah.
mental.
I don't think
So
it's ever fully recovered, to be
no.
honest.
And the thing is, and that added a part to it because I was
Mm,
scared to go walking outside and bump into someone in case I was to get ill and sick and all of these things that were going on. And I think slowly but surely I started to realize it was about just build the confidence back. Like I was starting from ground zero, if not lower, where I had to build back fitness and then I had to build back confidence of just walking to the shops or walking into town and not have the thoughts in my mind that, oh, I'm going to collapse here. What happens if I fall here and something happens and if there's no one around to find me? I
yeah,
used to sleep with my door unlocked. And
just
when
in
I'd sleep,
case.
just in case if somebody came to knock on my door, they could come in and find me. Like these were thoughts that were going on. I struggled to sleep at night because I was afraid I wasn't going to wake up. And the more that I started to believe in those thoughts, like you say, the worse I started to feel. And what I thought I was doing right by myself by not being active was probably the worst thing that you can possibly do, especially for a heart. So then, like I say, I slowly started to get myself back into the football routine of going into the training ground. But again, I used to hear this term all the time when I was going through everything was, Mark, you're so hard on yourself. And I
Mm,
never understood what it meant. I was thinking, well, I'm not cursing myself to sleep. Like, I'm not saying anything bad about myself. And they were like, no, but I'd go into the training ground and I'd be around a lot of people. And then I'd come home and I'd be beat myself up that I didn't exercise that day
yeah.
because that was something that was the main agenda of the day was I want to go in there. I want to exercise and do this. And if I didn't quite feel like it, I'd come home and go, I should have done it and my day seems wrong. But then when I got told the whole point of being able to break your day down, so from waking up, having breakfast, getting showered, getting changed, leaving the apartment, being around people, actually socializing, being out in fresh air, they're like nearly 10 good things that I'm actually able to take from that day. But I only focused on the one bad thing that I didn't do. And that
Which
was the whole point of being bad.
I mean, that's what society does. Like I've recently just I did a coaching qualification. I done all my football stuff, but I'm now obviously in a different sport. I've got to do it all again and get taught how to coach again. But I think obviously they show you videos of certain sessions and then say like identify things that went well and things that went bad. And everybody tends to focus on, oh, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And I'm like, well, actually, the numbers in the group were, bang on. And it's sort of changing that perspective to see whatever's positive or see whatever's good. What you mentioned then as well about breaking down your day. It's a guy called Alan Watts. I don't know whether you've ever heard of him. He's
No.
like, for me, he's like the godfather of mindfulness. Before mindfulness became sort of a influencer
Yeah.
trait, um, and he dictates a practice of every morning, as soon as you sort of become self-aware and compass mentis back in the room, everything should become like a conscious decision. So even down to the minute details of like opening your eyes. You make that conscious decision. I am now going to open my eyes. I am now
Yeah.
going to put my hands on the bed and push myself up off the bed to sit up on the side of the bed. I'm going to swing my legs and every single thing up until maybe breakfast time, because to try and do that all day will be so
Yeah.
exhausted. But everything becomes a conscious decision. Therefore, it kind of puts you in that mindset of like spotting these things that generally you just take. I mean, we've all been in car journey. I do it after training every Wednesday. It's a 30-minute drive. Before I know it, I'm home. And I'm like, how have I got here? It's pretty dangerous if I think
Yeah.
about it. But you just, you're in autopilot and you completely forget, that part of the journey. It's 30 minutes of my life that I'm not getting back, that I can't even remember being there. And I think what it does is it kind of slows the clock down to make you notice these little things that happen. You going into the training ground that one day might have made somebody else's day.
Yeah. And they're the things, like you say, it's like the whole ripple effect of everything that goes on in your day. And like I said, when I've started to understand stuff, and this is why I said that I wish I almost had the same mindset now than I did when I played, because I probably wouldn't have felt as pressured and built up anxiety from football. Like obviously I'd still enjoy it, but to be able to break down football and to kind of go, well, that was just one game. Let's forget about this. And you made a mistake. Who cares? All that type of stuff. Whereas I think nowadays in my life, a lot of people have spoken to me before and just said, "Oh, you seem just like a happy person." I was like, "Yeah, because I choose to be.
Mm.
It's not because I have everything happening around me, but it's almost like you learn that everything is a reflection of what you want to feel. If you feel negative of a day, you're going to see the dark clouds. You're going to see everything. If you want to think positive of a day, you're going to see those little bits of something like, or you're going to see that little bit of sunshine that shines through." And that's when I started to realize a lot for myself that, do you know what? It is just down to me and me only.
Mm.
And what's in me life is should be a conscious choice of what's in it. Because again, like you say, you can sit in the mentality of sitting there thinking, well, someone's at that saying something negative to me and somebody is telling me gossip or whatever it might be. It's still up to me whether I want to take that on board and engage in it and do all those things, or it's not on me to go and do that. And don't have to get dragged down by things. I don't have to let bad news like tear me day apart. And like you say, the more effort that I've taken to make these choices for myself over the last couple of years, it almost becomes second nature. It becomes
Yeah.
like a habit and it's a routine. And like I say, I see life as all of that. Everything is habit and routine. And the more that you do of something positive, or the more that you do of something just like going to a gym, just like training really hard, just like a friendship or going and starting a new job, your whole life can be exactly the same.
I
Whereas
think
if you make those exact same choices for yourself on a daily basis, at some stage it becomes second nature where you don't have to make the conscious choice. It just happens.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think the reason why I'm laughing is I'm thinking a lot of people, whether that be politicians or community leaders or even just Joe Public, could take a massive leaf out of that book in terms of if you see it constantly online and obviously with the world that I'm in and you're in is you've got to have that sort of online presence. The reason why I started the podcast is I love speaking to people and getting different points of view and having that sort of. I always use the term civil discourse, but it very rarely feels that way. I've had a musician on called Ray McMay, self-professed communist, completely opposite to what I believe in, but it never felt like discourse. It just felt like we were having a nice conversation,
yeah,
and he has a different view to what I have. Doesn't mean I have to convert him to capitalism and he doesn't have to convert me to
yeah,
communism. It's that sort of right. Well, I don't agree with that, but but he's a human being. He's got two eyes and a nose and a mouth exactly the same as me. I can, I've always been quite good at empathizing with people in certain situations. I can see how they got to that. I just don't think it's the right avenue to go down. But I can see their thought process. But it doesn't mean that I have to try and convert. And I think what everybody does in this day and age is if somebody has a differing opinion or a differing way of life, even like as it boils down to it, sometimes a different skin color or culture, they
hmm
have to convert. Like, well,
yeah,
they don't. They can just be themselves and you can be
100%.
yourself and just coexist. You
I
don't
always
have
think
to convert.
exactly the same. Like genuinely, I always think exactly the same because it's almost just kind of like, well, if everybody thought exactly the same, the world would be so
Oh,
boring.
boring as hell.
because I'd rather be able to sit with someone and understand why they see what the way they see things. I'd rather understand the person that they are for what they've gone through to why their views are the way they are or to why they see things how they do. And to be able to sit and have that conversation is more of an open and honest conversation than it is if somebody is to speak to you and you all have the exact same interest and you all wear the exact same clothes and everything is all the exact same terminologies. And I look at it and just think, well, sometimes it is about, well, this person sees this, right, but that could happen because years and years ago something happened in their life and then over time it's just gradually became them,
Mm.
and then they sit and could struggle over something or they could sit and see things differently. And it's been able to kind of sit between two people that probably, like you say, have polar opposite opinions, but both of you have an understanding of each other. Now, that doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong. It's just the fact of going, well, do you know what? This is what I think, and that's what you think. But like you say, especially nowadays, I think a lot of people get shot down because it's like, well, why don't you see it the way I see it? Because you should see it this way. Whereas
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, I don't have to see it that way. But look at everybody's entitled. And I think I seen something not long ago, and this was probably a year or two ago, where it's almost like when you can start seeing life from somebody else's perspective to how you see it, it becomes so much more peaceful in your life because you don't sit and get yourself worked up about why aren't you thinking how I'm thinking. It's more about going, right, let's understand them to why they think how they think and go, that's the reason why. And then it makes everything a lot more calmer and like real, to be honest, rather
Yeah,
than
it's that. It's
just make
that.
everything normal.
As long as there's rhyme and this is the whole thing with me. I'm a very logical person, and if it makes sense, I can accept it. Whether I agree with it or not, it doesn't really matter. But if it makes sense and it's logical, then yeah, okay, that's fine. Which is like we mentioned COVID before. COVID was so hard for me because it's like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm not doing it because it's not logic. You mean I've got to wear a mask now, but I can walk 5 feet over there and take it off and sit down and eat a meal, but then I've got to wear a mask to go to. It doesn't make sense.
No, I was exactly the same. And like, obviously, with the stuff I was going through at the time, you kind of just comply with it. And obviously,
Yeah.
because you all I was seeing on the telly and news and everything is if you get this, there's a potential chance of you dying and all those types of stuff. But like, I was only laughing about it not long ago with somebody when we were talking about how crazy of a time it was, because you do think back to these times and just think, well, what was standing 2 meters apart? Or like you say, if you were to go into a pub, especially in Ireland, you
Yeah.
weren't allowed to sit there unless you ordered a plate of chips. And it's like, well, what are those chips going to do? Deflect away from people? Like, you had to hug loved ones through a plastic sheet.
But
And it's
yet
like,
you can
well,
stand next to somebody if you've got a bowl of chips.
exactly. And it's like, it's the same between, like, let's say Wales and England and different things. Wales and England had two different sets of kind of protocols, but you could not be in a pub in Wales. But if you go across the bridge, you can sit in a pub
Yeah.
and then come back again. And it's like none of it did make sense. And you look back at it now and look at everybody can kind of in hindsight go, what were we thinking of?
Right.
But
We
at
were
the
all
same
hoodwinked, to be fair, I
but
think. But
but at the same point, you almost sit there and kind of say, well, it's just another chapter to a story in a life that you just sit there and kind of go, how mad were them times? They were
yeah,
crazy. And you kind of just move on from it. Like where, as you say, I think that's like anything in your life. It's like you can take it as little small chapters along the way and you just make the best of what you possibly can. And that is literally how even I see things now for myself.
I like that outlook. So I wanted to touch on, obviously, because your home country is, if anybody listening hasn't already figured out, you're not English. Um, so was it Ballyfermot? Is that where you grew
Ballyfermot,
up?
yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, was it always football when I know Ireland has such a steeped history in loads of different sports that we generally don't play over here, but football is one of them. Was it always football from like a young age? Was that always the thing?
I'd say from a young age, growing up, like I was a bit of like I've done everything. Like I played Gaelic sometimes in a school team. Um, I used to skateboard and stuff like that with my friends. You play rounders out on the street, like you were doing everything. But then I think when my brother started playing, who's 2 years older than me, it's like I just kind of followed in everything he done. So when he started playing for the local team, I played 2 years younger, and then as time just went on, but I think football just kind of outweighed everything. Like I
Mm.
just loved it, and I don't ask me why, because it just was something that once I started playing, I just couldn't get enough of it. And then as the years went on, like football basically was life for me. If I had to do an English essay in school, it
It's
would
a
be a
football.
football story. Like everything was always something football. And I was always, every Tuesday back home in Ireland, you used to have to check the newspaper for your fixture on the Saturday, and I'd be straight home. Who are we playing this week? And like it was just something that like I just loved, and I didn't care how I was going to play it. But once I got to play it, that's all that mattered to me. And by the time I got to about 11 or 12, it gets a little bit more serious, but like in a good way, where you start playing for your county team. So
Hmm.
I played for Dublin in a tournament, and I got to be captain of my Dublin team. And then when you get to 15, 14, 15, you start playing for your young international, playing for Ireland. I got to be captain of that. And then all of a sudden, that's when scouts start coming into it and start taking you over to different clubs on trial to see how you fit in with their setup, to see if you like it. And I went on 4 or 5 different clubs on trials, and I ended up settling where I went over to Derby County at the time and just loved every minute of it. And the reason I loved it wasn't for the sake of football, because I would have moved halfway around the world for it. It was the fact of it felt like a home from home. It felt
Mm.
comfortable. Moving away from Ireland is a tough thing, like for anybody moving away from home. But I was only 15. So once I kind of made that decision, I said, yeah, I'm moving to Derby. Like this is all that I wanted. Once I ended up going away, it was honestly the best thing that I ever done, because not only did I move to try and progress a career, like I got to play football every day. And
Yeah.
that to me was all that I cared about, because I was just thinking, like, what more can I want? I get to kick a ball every single day. But the difference of it all was you start to understand the dynamics of being a professional then. Then it's now you've got your gym sessions, now you've got your timetables, now you've got your structure, now you've got your discipline, now you've got all of these things and your hard training every single day. That it's not just kick a ball around. It's not
Mm.
the same as what it was in Ireland. So then you start understanding the disciplines and the professionalism and everything like that. And I was lucky enough that when I moved away, um, I think it was in the summer I was 15, and then I spent a full season in Derby, and I got to register as a Derby academy player when I was 16 in that November. And then by the following summer, I got to make my debut for Derby County's first team. And to go from the roller coaster of playing in a local park one summer, and then the next summer I was playing in front of 20,000 people, like it,
Bonkers.
it cemented everything. It literally cemented everything to me to say, this is all that I want for the rest of my life. And
So
that,
did you move over to England on, was it alone on your, obviously you're with the club, but was it over at 15 on your own? Did anybody come with you?
no, I moved over on my own. So when I moved over, you kind of get put in a digs house where
Yeah, yeah.
family after it, and there's a couple of other lads, but moved over at 15 by myself, all
But
family in Ireland.
do you, do you think, obviously I've been involved from a coaching perspective in Premier League youth setups, and elite centres, development centres, academy teams. Is for Burnley of all places under
Right.
Brian Laws when he was when he took over from Owen Coyle when he was in the Premiership. He was absolutely dreadful and clueless. Unfortunately, he didn't last long. But I do, obviously the young lads that I coached. They seemed always to be a little bit older than the years. They always seemed to be a little bit more switched on, a little bit more, they weren't like the other 14, 15-year-olds at the time that were, playing around on a park on a Saturday night. They'd be home, they'd be getting the nutrition in, they'd be maybe doing extra sessions, staying out on the pitch after training sessions. Do you think sport, and I want to get expand on the sport element later, is do you think it makes you grow up a lot quicker? Does it make you grow up fast?
Yeah, I think the football scene, and especially for how I kind of got fast tracked through to playing for the senior men's team at the age of 16, that I had to grow up very quickly.
Mm.
But I don't think it was in a detrimental way. I think I grew up
No.
quickly as a maturity where I got to talk more and you open up more and you have to stand up for yourself a bit more and you have to be a little bit more vocal because it's your career and it teaches you great social skills, but it teaches you a lot of discipline, like to not be late for training, wake up on time, do your gym session, do your hard work, and all of these things that look at in a day-to-day job is what they sought out for after everybody, and you're just naturally molding yourself into that without even realizing it. And I think at the age of 16, I was someone that I think on a pitch, I was like everybody else. I would talk, shout, scream, and I was in the element playing football. Off the field, I was still a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
I was still someone that was like speak when spoken to, have the polite manners and all those types of things. But what it was teaching me, like you say, was to be able to socialize with older people.
Mm.
Like you say, when you're in sport and surrounded by your own age group, it's great because these are all 16-year-olds. But then when you start moving up the age groups and
There's
even
different rules.
there's different rules, there's different kind of disciplines, there's different kind of respect levels. I'm not just going to walk into a force team and all of a sudden expect myself to kind of be treated as one of them. You kind of have to in your stripes type thing. So you still have your jobs where you're cleaning boots and you're moving all the ice sheets off the pitch when they need to be moved, and you're doing all like the kind of nitty gritty stuff to kind of show what you're made of to an extent to earn your respect. But then also afterwards, it's kind of like you say, showing you that discipline to kind of say, right, well, if this is what I want to get to, this is just another obstacle in the way. And I will make sure I get that done to the best that I can, be as professional as I can. And then when you do get given that opportunity and your time has moved on and the next group come through, well, then you could be the one to kind of
You're the
speak to them
mentor.
out.
Yeah.
And you're the one that they look up to say, well, if he's been through it and look what he's done, like you say, it's all about setting examples. And I do believe that once you join the football mold, it is the ones that kind of grow up that and mature that a little bit quicker and not get too carried away with themselves. Because, as you say, you can get given everything, especially nowadays. You get given everything, and eyes go on you, and not, and social media goes on you, and everything. Where you can either go one or two ways, where you kind of just take it for what it is and accept it, or you kind of let your head swell out just as much as the publicity that you're getting.
Yeah, I think we see it in real time, and obviously, I'm not in the dressing rooms and I'm not in behind the scenes, but you see, say one of the probably the most famous player in the world. You take Ronaldo. He's like when he was, a young kid, 18, and he's at Manchester United. He could have let everything go to his head, and he could have ended up going the way of, say, somebody like Jadon Sancho, where instead it was like, right, everybody thinks I'm brilliant. I've now got to knuckle down and show I'm better than what they think I am,
And
and then
when
go
you
on
look
and
at
go on.
that, I only it was funny that you even mentioned Ronaldo because I had the same thing where I always believed if he didn't have the surrounding people around him, which are Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville's, if he wasn't in that changing room, potentially he could have gone that way. So then that I always believed that it's all about the examples that are around you just as much as, yeah, I can understand it for myself. But if you're a young kid going into, let's say, an egotistical changing room, you get carried away with it because well, that's just
The
the
done
culture.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just the normal thing. But I think when he was coming through with and Alex Ferguson being his manager and being how hard he was on his players, that I believe the example around him is what molded him and his own personal drive that he had within him got brought out more through that. But he wasn't going to be someone that was, as you say, let the shackles go at the age of 17. It was almost like, we're going to keep pulling you back.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't have got away with that with Ray Keane
Well,
being in your dressing room, would you?
exactly. And that's the way I see it is that I believe he was molded by the environment he was part of. Now, he
Yeah.
still had all the drive and the hard work and the work ethic and stuff like that because he always wanted to improve, which is his own personal agenda. But I think his own personal agenda could still be molded for the professionalism that was surrounding him and how to conduct yourself was around him and the discipline that surrounded that change room that was around him to kind of protect him a little bit. And like you say, it all comes together and then he sprouts off and becomes one of the best players ever.
Yeah, it's understanding that it's understanding your players to it, because obviously I've experienced managers within my sporting career, which is not as decorated as I'd probably like it to be. Uh, but you get managers and players and stuff that are that sort of arm round. But I always tended to find that my best games or the things that I look back on where I played well was I remember there was a cup game and I'd scored the week previous and I got started on the bench the week after and I was fucking
Yeah,
furious and I was so angry and we were losing 3-2 and I got brought on for the last 20 minutes and I scored two and we won. And then it was like, yeah, but now he's going to start me on a fucking bench next week because now he's given me that sort of bite. But that motivation for me, that sort of tough love, used to work for me. I used to hate it with a passion because it'd get in my head and I'd be thinking about it for weeks. But it always used to bring the best sporting performance out
yeah,
in me. And I think understanding how to get that motivation out of players is what makes a really good coach or a really good manager. I think what I wanted to touch on as well is, and I was thinking about this at I think 2 a.m. the other night when I can't sleep and I start sort of ruminating. And I always found there's two things within our society, and I think it's globally as well. It pretty much is globally, but singing is one. So singing, whatever culture, whatever country that you come from, when somebody has a good voice and sings like an angel, it mesmerizes whoever
hmm
wherever you are. It could be whatever language, and they almost get put on a pedestal because they might be an awful person, but just because they can sing, it's like, oh my god, they're amazing. Well, no, they slap children every night. It's like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but it is held in such a high regard, and the same with sporting achievement. I think, if you're good at sport and you have some level of talent which is above most. I mean, I I I remember playing in a eight-a-side tournament. I won't mention the player, but it was an ex-Premier League player that was past his best and was classed as a shit Premier League player when he played. He wasn't like a stalwart in the team. He wasn't particularly looked upon as good. And I thought this would be brilliant. I couldn't get near him at all. Before, as soon as you sort of saw him get the ball, you'd go to close that, and then he'd disappear, literally disappear,
yeah.
and you'd be like, "Where the fuck did he go?" And it kind of showed me the levels of, when you think somebody's pretty poor in the Premiership, they're just ten times better than what you could possibly imagine. But I think that when they get to that level of sporting achievement, where it's just a way above normal or way above talented to a certain extent, there's there's something primal, I think, within us as a species that just put them on the pedestal and are
Yeah,
almost awe-inspired. And that's in any sport. It's not necessarily local to football. I mean, that's the reason why we got the Olympic. I watched like the two-person luge the other day. I've never watched it before in my life, but what an amazing sort of
yeah.
spectacle to watch. And I think um, I don't know. Do you get that in terms of when you grew up in Ireland, and then you obviously make the move over to Derby? Do you have that feeling from the inside that we have it's that responsibility?
Do you know what? I never understood it until there was a particular time in Derby. I was only 16, just turned 17, and it was during a World Cup, or it might have been the Euros. I remember England were playing against Germany, and it was when Frank Lampard scored the chip over him, but it didn't get given because of bouncing.
Oh, I remember that. I remember exactly where I was. I was furious with that.
So in our changing room, all the lads were giving it to the likes of me and one or two of the other Irish lads about Ireland not being in the tournament. So obviously, when the game finished 4-2 to Germany, I just wrote up a Facebook status because of all the lads who were there saying, "Thank God England are out, come on the Germans." But I just thought that that's me just writing up something, having a bit of banter.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, it's like some of the lads are writing back to it, and it's a bit of fun. And then this Derby fan wrote, I think you need to read this, and then sent me a link. So I clicked on the link, and it was the Derby forum for the fans. And it was 4 pages long of just abuse on my
Oh,
topic of a
wow.
status that I wrote. Now, I'm only 17. Now, I'm reading this, and there's people writing in it saying, we're going to boo him when he plays at our home stadium. Like, how dare he come over here and take the money of this? Why doesn't he just fuck off back home? Like, he needs to be careful in what he says, because there'll be a bullet waiting on him if he carries this stuff on. All things like that. And I'm reading this thinking, I was only just having banter with lads in the changing room. Now, there was some level-headed people in there saying the same thing, saying, um, like, literally speaking of going, well, he's only young, naive, like he's probably just having a joke around, like
Mm,
it was silly on his behalf type stuff. So then I mentioned it to the club, got told write up an apology, and it was at that moment that I thought, I'm not just a 17-year-old kid anymore. Like, now I have grown adults and everybody, and you're like in everybody's eye line. From everything you say and do, you're the example. And as you say, you have to kind of make those mistakes to then learn from them, to kind
mm,
of understand what it is. And as I've taken that on now, like from that point on, like I love that responsibility. I love being able to be that person that people can kind of see an example of, to kind of go, well, do you know what? One day, like, I love how he conducted himself, or I like the person that he is. And like, I've never been the person that has been the, as you call it, typical footballer, whereas I'll sign this. Like, I will sit and talk to anybody. I will sit and sign as many things as I need to sign. I will bring the human element to kind of show people that footballers are only just humans. Like, for what
mm.
pedestal you put them on, they're actually just normal people with the same normal problems. Where
Yeah.
if someone's had a newborn baby, well, then guess what? His baby doesn't sleep twice as good just because he's a footballer. He's been kept awake just as much. People can fall out, can break up with girlfriends and divorces and all these different things that can go on in a normal day-to-day life. Footballers are exactly the same. So don't automatically see them as someone where you're untouchable, or, "Oh, I can't believe this is happening." It's almost like, no, bring the realism into it. And I think that's almost like the person that I am. Like, I will stand and talk to anybody. I remember when I was only 19, and you're having grown men and people who are kind of quivering speaking to you because they're nervous to talk to you. And I'm thinking, I'm 19. Like, I'm a 19-year-old kid. But at the same time, you see me as somebody who plays for your club, and you're this and you're this and you're this. And I'm like, it is nice to think that people think that highly of you. And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, it is lovely. And I think, for especially how I am in my life now, I want to be that example to anybody, to kind of say, right, well, I did have football, and I did have the heart surgeries, and I did have these things, but you know what? Your life doesn't have to change. You can carry on and get as successful, and success can be from the smallest of things, where I believe my success comes down to being genuinely happy. Like, I think that's success. I don't think all of a sudden having abundance of wealth and say I've done all these things is success. I look at it and just say, well, if I'm just able to carry on in my life and be happy, that's successful. And to be that example for other people, because of using the platform of, it wasn't an amazing career, but to me it was amazing. So I'm going to use that to the best that I can, to try and be an example for more people, to say, well, look at, if he's able to do it, so am I. Because the human element is, I'm a young lad that moved away from Ireland when I was 15 to go after a career and a job, just like anybody else. So why is it that I have to be seen differently? I'm exactly the same, because football is just a job, just like anybody else's job. And the more that I try and involve that into people, the more people can actually hopefully cut some players a bit of slack, to realize, do you know what? As much as you put them on that pedestal and they have to be professional, well, do you know what? They can also make mistakes.
Yeah.
They can also do the wrong thing. They can also say the wrong thing. And that's okay, because you know what? We've all done it.
I think it's more difficult sometimes as well, especially in sport, because and probably more so than football, than any other sport, especially in your home country and my country, is the fact that because it's so high profile, and you've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people hanging on 11 people's sort of every action. Um, it's 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 really difficult. And I was having this chat with Mike McDonnell, who's an author that everybody, if and it's been almost a game changer for me psychologically, is regardless of who you are. So say you work in Tesco's, other supermarkets are available. Keep on having to say that. Say you work in a supermarket and you have a manager, and then they have an area manager, then they have whatever. These people that are above you in that sense, they don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. They're
Hmm.
just winging it as much as you're winging it. They aren't any more intelligent than you are. They aren't any more insightful than you are. They aren't any more of a human being than you are. Just because they earn a bit more money and they've got this title of manager, like this this scramble for titles
Yeah.
as sort of happened, is most people, and then you scale that up to like sports, all these people in football, and any other sport, even like basketball in America, they are just people. They're not anything. Not to put you down, Mark, but you're not anything special. It's
Thanks
just
very
you've
much.
got you've got a talent and you're really good at football, but you're not like, you're not this superhuman that never makes mistakes or says the wrong
Hmm.
thing or changes opinions or changes views. And it's the same. It goes all the way up to people like Keir Starmer at the minute, Prime Minister. He's just a person, and yes, he's making mistakes after mistakes after mistakes, but he is just he's not like infallible at all. And I think this is the thing that people get flustered over, because people within football are manufactured to an extent. You see Jude Bellingham and his brother, where his mum and that whole unit are
Hmm.
manufacturing meticulously his image and his trajectory into global superstar, which is amazing. But then you kind of lose that human element. So when they do, and especially in sport where it's emotionally charged, like I know for a fact, and there'll be some referees that have refed me, think I'm a knobhead, and I'm not. I'm just on a football pitch. I'm awful. I'm not nice, and I know I'm not. It's just because it's that emotional charge, competitive element that comes out in me. And as soon as 90 minutes blows, that's it. Shake hands. Let's go for a
I was
beer or
always
whatever.
exactly the same in my career. Like I used to always say, football to me in the 90 minutes was like an alter ego. It was like my mum used to always think like, who's the fella who's playing football? And when I'm off the field, like I loved a laugh and a joke and to wind up people and different things and always be like as smiling as best as you can in a changing room and just to have a morale about the place and just that feel good factor. But the minute I go onto a pitch, like it was my job. And it's almost like that little bit of a switch to kind of go right from now, not intentionally meaning to hurt people, but being a defender, do you know what? I love to tackle, love to win a header, love to make a block. Like if my teammates weren't doing something that you think they should be, well then I wasn't going to be short of letting them know. Just as much as I'd expect it back, but it's my job. So it's almost kind of like I was able to have that bit of a switch between yeah, when football's finished, you know what? I could be playing against someone and we could tackle and we could argue and we could say all these things. But you know what? Some of the best players that I've played with and some of the best people that I've played with have been people would think we hate each other on a pitch because he understood it was his job and he would say things to me and I would understand it's my job and say things to him. But off the field, do you know what? We'd be laughing and joking and walking out arm in arm. Like it does not matter because it's almost like you say, you're able to tell the difference between the two. And it even goes back to the fact of like the only difference that does be on the human element between a professional or these other people is a mindset, is the fact of kind of saying, right, well, I am that little bit more disciplined because I'm going for what I want. I am that little bit more trying to learn more and I'll work hard for it. But that's no different to saying, well, if somebody didn't work really hard and had that little bit of a talent for football and worked really hard at it, well, you could do the same. Or if
Mm.
somebody worked really hard in the job they were in, but like you say, then you fall into the category of where you do sit in that kind of backward step of going, well, why did they have to get, they're just so lucky. They're lucky
Yeah.
they get given all the chances. And it's like, well, no, like I didn't get given a chance. I just kept playing football and worked hard at it. Someone didn't get given a chance just work really hard. And at some stage, at some point in your life, it will work out. Unfortunately, some people who fall into that mold are wanting it now.
Mm.
And I want it right now. And if it's not happening now, well, then that person's lucky and I'm not. But
I
it's
mean, you look
almost like
look at players like Jamie Vardy. You know,
1,000,000%.
like he didn't become successful in successful terms until what was he 27, 28?
Yeah, 100%. And that was something where, like you say, he starts in non-league, keeps on playing, goes into the next league and the next league and the next league, and he just works his way up. But the difference of that was why he was such a powerhouse in the Premier League is because he had all the raw values of working hard.
Mm.
Like you say, he wasn't manufactured through an academy at Manchester United where you get brought up in Manchester way. He got brought up the raw and talent way where
Yeah.
it was like hard work. And this is why I always say when you watch the FA Cup, everybody loves watching the Premier League team against the underdog story of a lower league team. I got to play in some and you get to watch some. But everybody loves it. And the one thing Premier League teams I think differ from lower league teams is they lose the core of hard work. They lose the
Mm.
core of a tough tackle because of so much VAR. They lose the core of chase every ball until it goes out of play because it's about conserve your energy. But I think when you play a lower league team, they will fight tooth and nail for everything they've got. And that's why sometimes you see Premier League teams, hang on, they're feeling a bit under pressure here. They're feeling overturned. Now, don't get me wrong, the quality level of how they train and the fitness levels of what they do and everything that they do is more explosive and it's a bit more calculated and they're a little bit more intelligent. But when it comes to it, how I used to always see it, it's 11 men against 11 men.
Yeah. And
So
it's
why?
I think that's the obviously coming from a Man United fan, that it's been a difficult thing for the past 13 years.
I'm the same.
Is I'm not obviously I'm bothered about the result. I always want the win. But I think the thing that I think with most fans, what it can do is you can settle that annoyance of not winning as long as they've left everything out there. If they
100%.
if they put, like, one of my favorite players over recent years was Wout Weghorst, and I know he wasn't there, and Odion Ingalo as well. I loved them both, and the reason is as soon as they came on the pitch, you knew it was 150% constant running for every single. That's why Edison Cavani was so good. He never gave up. He ran after every single ball. He never gave anything up. He was battling from minute 1 to minute 90. And I think as long as that happens within a team, most fans and most people that like the game or like any sport can say, right, well, we lost, but we couldn't have done anything more.
Yeah,
We did
100%.
everything. Um, and that's the beauty of it. I think that's why people enjoy, or I like, for instance, the past 5 games have been actually quite a breath of fresh air, fresh air for me.
Enjoyable.
Yeah, it's been the first time I've enjoyed football since Solskjaer was there, to be honest. And but you can just see it's the effort. Yes, they're playing good football. Yes, they're winning. But if we'd have lost these last 5 games but still played the exact same way, I'd still be quite happy.
You'll see the progress in it. And I think that's the way when I've grown up watching Manchester United and anything that you kind of associate with Man United used to be, they were just clinical. Everything
Mm.
was forward. And when they'd flood forward, there'd be bodies getting into the box and there'd be options. And it's almost like you see that in their performances now. You see that in the atmosphere in Old Trafford. Like everything United do is a positive step forward where midfielder gets it, it's going out wide and we're getting at the fullback. And then it's going to the striker and we're pushing men forward. And as you say, I think when potentially, like you see, when he's dropped back, when you get Carrick back, it's almost like he's just gone back to basics of Man United. Like everybody who tries to come in and mess with the DNA, or everyone who tries to come in and construct something and try and say, "I'll get this back to the best, but we'll do it this way." It's almost like, no, but what's the core value of Manchester United? What is what their history has been built on?
Mm.
Okay, let's tap into that and adapt it. Let's make football basic for these players, and let's adapt a more free, like freestyle kind of free flowing football going forward with a bit of a structure. And that is the way that you look at it. It just looks so much more structured. Players look happier, more comfortable, more confident.
That's I mean, one of my favorite TV programs of all time is Ted Lasso. I don't know whether you've watched it. I
I haven't
love.
watched it, but like I've seen clips
Oh,
of it. I've seen clips.
honestly, you need to watch it. It's one of the best. You know, for anybody that loves football, it's awesome. But then at the same time, it's not just all about the football.
Yeah,
It's such a great TV series. And there's a part in it where the captain of the team starts losing his mojo, and he can't quite. He's not playing enough, and he's losing his head in games, and they're going on a losing streak. And what the solution was to take him to like a five-a-side mugger on a Saturday night and just and play with these street footballers.
yeah,
Go and have fun.
yeah.
Go and express yourself. Just yeah, and that's what I think people enjoy when players on the pitch. One of my favorite players of all time is Adel Taarabt. I loved watching him because it was like you could see he was just a kid having the best time of his life whenever he was on the pitch, just ripping people to shreds. And you know what? He'd take it past one, two, three, then lose it, and everybody would get. But it's like, yeah, but did you not get the enjoyment where he was just? You could see he was grinning inside, ear to ear, because he was just having. That's what he loved to do.
100%. But you go back and think of JJ Okocha or Ronaldinho,
Yeah.
the Robinhos, and all people like this. Like that was when I would love watching Barcelona play. You had Ronaldinho, you have like the El Clasico, you had Zidane's, and all these people. Like when you had that type of football, like it was still done. Everybody worked hard for what they had, but there
Mm.
was a bit more of it. Just express yourself. Like now it seems as though it's very robotic football. Like football to me seems so robotic to where everybody has a structure. Everybody has a part on the field to play a certain part and don't step outside of that because if you do, and because it's so structured, it's like players can only respond to instruction and not understand the game. So it's
Yeah.
like the manager has told me to go there, play it wide, or go there, or go back. Don't give the ball away. Whereas there's no football IQ to kind of go, well, what positions do I have to cover? Like if he goes there, do I have to come across it? Like, don't think for yourself sometimes, but
Yeah.
instead, everybody's waiting on the manager to kind of go, right, you're supposed to do this, and this is the way it's supposed to be. And I just think when you lose your own thought process in football, you're already in a lost battle because a football game is never going to be exactly from what you learned on a tactics board to how the manager moved the mannequins. So what about in training where there's a fella now in a game that's standing beside me and he hasn't left the whole time, but the manager never told me that. So what do I do? And it's almost like that's how finest detail football is getting given. But it's too robotic where sometimes you almost have to go, well, here's a structure. This is what we learned. This is what we're going to play from. But within that structure, well, if he goes out of there, no to cover in the cross there, no
Mm.
to come back into
It
there.
needs to be instinctual, right? And you think like
100%.
me. So what I obviously for the past 7 months I moved. I still play a little bit of eight aside, but moving from football to hockey, I've never played hockey before, and trying to learn a new skill at 37 is hard in itself. Because the phrase "old dog and new tricks" doesn't come from nowhere. It's difficult when you get a little bit older, but I understand the value of extra training. I understand the value of putting in the work and getting to the level. And I believe my teammates who listen might disagree with me, but I feel like I've got to the level where I
Yeah.
need to sort of get to now, and I can build from that point. But I think one of the best pieces of advice, and Jules, if you're listening, it's all down to you. The best piece of advice that I got, and it wasn't necessarily a piece of coaching. Um, I know how to play football. I've played it for 20 odd years. That's a massive advantage moving into that sport because there's no offsides, which is fucking unbelievable. You don't
Yeah.
have to hold your run or watch your line or anything along those lines. Um, but I came off because it's roll on, roll off subs. I came off and I asked him for advice, and he went, "Will you stop thinking? Just
Yeah.
stop thinking. Just what you're doing is you're thinking, then converting it from football to hockey, and then doing it. But by that time, you're a second too late. Just stop thinking and do it." And honestly, it's one of the best pieces of advice I've got, and it's because it's instinctual. I know that I need to be there. Just do it. Just go. And I think with Michael Owen, I think it was Michael Owen. mentioned, I think it was one of them interviews where he's with Gary Neville or Rio Ferdinand, where he says, nowadays in the modern game, you just have to be a pretty decent athlete and kick a ball about, but you've got to be like a good athlete. Whereas back in sort of Zidane, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, Figo, Beckham, all these players, you had to be really talented,
Oh,
and
and
the fitness stuff came after.
I used to always think exactly the same, and I still do to this day. Where you watch Pirlo. Now,
Yeah.
one of his famous quotes was that like he never liked the warm up. He just wanted to go out and play football. Or it used to be, I think it was Boateng spoke on a podcast not long ago, and he said when he went to AC Milan, and he said he's in training and Pirlo is on the ball and he's calling for his name and he's telling him to pass it, to pass it, to pass it. And he said someone came over and he said to pass on a message from Pirlo was tell him to be quiet. And he was like, but if I don't call for the ball, I don't get it. He goes, no, tell him to be quiet because you're letting the opposition know where you are. If you make a good run, I'll already see it. Now,
Mm.
that is somebody who just knows the fact of going, that's talent. Like these things that I always agree, especially nowadays, that from fullbacks to your Kyle Walkers to Trent Alexander Arnolds and you have your Virgil van Dijks, and I know it's probably a personal opinion, but they're not as instinctually good defenders because, yeah, they've got pace to get themselves out of trouble. Yeah,
Mm.
they've got a bit of a physique. They're great athletes. And look, Virgil van Dijk is a great player, but I'd look at it and go, but is he instinctually a great defender? No. Would you
Well,
put John Terry ahead of him as a defender? Yes. Would you
well,
put Vidic, Ferdinand?
that's
Yes.
that's the thing. Like, obviously, you hear it quite regularly, and I think people have such short memories that Virgil van Dijk's one of the best centre backs to ever play the game, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's he's good for this era, but like you've just said, he definitely doesn't get ahead of Ferdinand. Definitely doesn't get ahead of Vidic. Definitely doesn't get ahead of John Terry, and like Carvalho, he doesn't get ahead of Ricardo Carvalho for me. He's like, there's these players that are way ahead of him. Now, don't get me wrong. Yeah, he's big, he's fast for a centre back, and he's good for this era. But it's like you look at Kyle Walker, and Kyle Walker obviously made the move to Burnley. For me, I'd look to try and transfer him into a centre back position because when used to make mistakes for City, he was probably one of the fastest players in the Premier League. He can make up for it.
Hmm.
That's leaving him very
Yeah.
quickly. He can't now when he makes that mistake, he can't recover
Yeah.
as much, which is obviously part and parcel of the problem. And that's when you see players like Wayne Rooney start dropping into sort of the 10 role and the central midfield role, is because he knows that's not my position anymore.
And as well as that, he has the intelligence to do it because he's got the footballing ability. He wasn't brought up as a striker, so I only remain a striker. It was like, got brought up as a football player. So put myself in any position, adapt to it, to your football and talent, and you will be able to play that position. It mightn't be the most comfortable of positions, but you can play it. And it's like, as I said, it's when I look at so many defenders over years, ones that like I grew up watching, which is like Vidic, Ferdinand, Chiellini, Cannavaro, and Maldini at AC Milan was probably like later in his days. Nesta, like there's all these people, even Yap Stam, and I look at it and just think, like, that to me, that's a defender. Someone who will stick their head in, someone who will tackle, win headers, can time a tackle perfectly, can read a game and know where the ball's going to be, and not just someone who plays to a statistical basis of a manager wants to play a high line. So we stand there, and now I need to get pace because when they play a ball over the top, which is inevitable, I need pace to get back. But instead of being the clever of defender, to read the game and know what's happening, to kind of
Mm.
know when to pass or when not to pass or when to play a long ball, when to kick it out of your stadium for all that matters, but just to be a defender. And I think when that is getting taken away because of how football is moving, that is why I always look at it. And it's the most like up to date comment like that Michael Owen made is the fact of saying that you only like everybody thinks about athleticism. That's all that it is. To play a football, you have to be athletic. We'll teach you everything after. Whereas before, like you say, you'd get noticed on your talent and then your athleticism would pick up because they'll train you hard.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
now it's like I can do the 100 meters in this amount, and I'll teach you how to. I'll teach you how to take a touch, and that's what, like, well, hang on a second, like it's going roles reverse now.
it's like the sort of one of the best pieces of advice any coach. What's faster? You or the ball. You
Oh,
don't need to be
everybody
fast.
always said, like, I got brought up on that. Like, the ball is the fastest thing that moves on a pitch. So move that quicker and the team can't get near you. So it's all well and good. And my dad, as I was growing up, used to say the same thing to me, where there's always going to be players faster than me. Like, I was never
Mm,
gifted with pace. But it's almost about, right, how you manipulate your body as you run next to someone who's fast. Like my dad used to always say when I was growing up, I'd run alongside someone and they could outpace me down the outside. So he's like, okay, well, how about get your arm across them? How about getting across them? And then you learn that as football goes on with your academy coaches and different things. And you just start to learn how to manipulate things because then you're using your head of going, right, he's quicker than me. He likes to do this and likes to run the channel. So if I'm already there waiting and give myself an extra couple of yards, I'll already be there. If someone's big physical, how do I handle that? I remember I was 18 and Lucas Jukovic plays for Birmingham.
yeah, yeah.
He played at Coventry at the time. And I was only 18 and we were 5 games unbeaten at the start of the season. I broke through and played all 5 games. And like you say, you're kind of up there thinking, I'm doing really well here. Like everything is going brilliant. And it was that game away to Coventry. It was live on Sky Sports and we lost 2-0. And I've never been given a lesson from a striker as much as I got given a lesson from him because my game was be a defender, win your headers, win your tackles, be physical. But no matter what I done, I just couldn't get it right. If I go for a header with him, he'd out jump me. If I got too tight, he'd go down and get a foul. If I didn't get tight enough, he'd turn out. If I wanted to get around him, he'd use his body to get moved this way. If there was like it was always like it was just he's just one step too good for me, or one step too far, or one step ahead of me because I was the naive young defender who was eager, just win it, win it, win it. And it was going well for me for 5 games, but it teaches you to kind of go, you have to adapt every single game.
Mm.
Not every game is going to be the same. So it's almost like, right, well, now that I'm playing this striker, he's going to be like this. Now, when I play the next striker, he's going to be totally different. But I just used to think in my own head of going, I'm a defender. If I do all of this, this is all I can do. But you forget about, right, but the people you're playing against are kind of weighing you up at the same time to go, right, well, what is it that I can get an edge on him? And as you say, but then that's the learning of football. It doesn't come from your coaches, it comes from yourself to try and understand it a little bit to kind of say, actually, I need to understand what I need to do better and what I need to do to give myself the edge. And that learning only ever comes from you. But I think everybody sorts after it now to go like ask the coach, and the coach has to be the one to tell you. And if the coach doesn't tell you, well, then it's okay because the coach never said it. And I'm like, right, well, how about make your mind up for yourself and see how that goes for you? And sometimes that's what's missing in the game.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I just it made me think of like when I think it was a Vidic interview where he was asked like who's the toughest striker you played against, and I think famously people think Fernando Torres would be his like nightmare, even though technically it was statistically he wasn't even that successful against
No.
Vidic whatsoever, but he was saying like Drogba was the hardest person he played against, and I think that's because a lot of Vidic's game was physical. He would
Yeah.
outmuscle somebody, but then when you're trying to do it against somebody like Drogba, who's probably just yeah, you that's it. Right, game plan one's out the window. Right, well maybe I'll beat him for pace. Oh shit, he's fast too. Right, well game plan two's out the window. Right, what's game plan three? And it's that sort of adaptability. And I think as much as people, and this is not bitter for anybody that's listening, this is not some sort of bitter just because he's a City manager. But I think although what he's done in the game, obviously with Barcelona, Bayern Munich and City, phenomenal mind, tactician, knows the game inside out and more than I ever will. But I think what managers like Pep Guardiola have done, and obviously he's got people like Arteta doing the same, is they've almost diluted the sort of, they've made the game clinical. There's a clip where Thierry Henry, when he played for Barcelona, he was talking about like how Pep sets up his team and
It's when he
like when
drifted across the pitch, wasn't it?
yeah, and he was like, and he scored, I think, and he was really annoyed at him because he was like, no, it's rigid, you've got to be in this, but when you get into the final third, you can kind of do whatever you want, and it's that sort of rigidity that other teams that maybe don't have the players that are trying to emulate it, that make the game a little bit boring and a little bit like
100%. And it's the same thing. It's the same things with managers though, where everybody tries to say, "Oh, you're not playing the footballing way." And
yeah,
now, like, there's a certain structure to say now you're playing proper football. Like football should just be football, regardless. If your team is winning, doesn't matter how they're doing it. Are you, as a manager, going to crucify your team for coming in at the end of a game winning 2-0, but they didn't make as many passes as you hoped for? So you're going to tell them that's not good enough? No, because at the end of the day, football is a results based business. And I always look at it and say, with the players that you've got, you go out and you get the result in the best way that you possibly can. Because no fan base is ever going to moan about winning games of football because it wasn't done properly. But
yeah,
I just think because there's so much emphasis, especially from the Premier League and different things, and as you say, football itself is turned into kind of very commercial based, and it's like a massive enterprise. And like you say, with VAR and everything is so clinical, down to a ball crossing a line to a fingernail offside and different things like that. Like there's so much to it that you almost look at it and say, like, football is getting boring to watch. Like
mm,
I'd much rather watch the Championship and watch League One and League Two. Yeah, the football and the quality might not be great, but you know what? The excitement, the tackling, the passion, the fight for every last ball, the set plays into a box and people defending with their bodies on the line and hearts on their sleeve. And that to me, that's football. And that to me is something where I go, it's all well and good that there's multi millions of pounds that are getting pumped into football from the Premier League. And all of that side of stuff is great. But if you're going to dilute it so much to where, like you say, people can go into a crunch and tackle now and get given a yellow card because excessive force. And I'm
yeah.
thinking,
Well, it's I. This is coming from a United fan, and obviously Romero got sent off the other weekend for Tottenham, and I'm like, not really a red card. He's got the ball. Yeah, it's a bit strong, but if I got that given against me, I'd be so annoyed
oh,
because
100%.
I got the ball. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I caught him in an awkward place, but it's basically, I think he still had control of it. But say he didn't, it is a 50-50 ball. And he's got the ball first and just followed through and caught him awkwardly.
But it's just like
Yellow
anything.
card, yeah, yellow card, fair enough. I'd have accepted that, but I'd still have been annoyed because I'd have got the ball first. But it's nowhere near red.
No, and it's just like anything though in football though. It's like if you are capable and have the ability to watch it back and you pause at a specific point in any tackle, it will always look dangerous
Yeah.
because it's a tackle. So like even if the ball is there and someone is going in for a crunch attack, like guarantee you can pause it at a certain point to go, oh, that looks terrible. Oh, that looks hard. Oh, that's tough. But when you watch it in open time, it's almost like I love that, and that's what fans want to see because that's
It's a
playing and that's fighting for the badge.
it's a contact sport. It's the way it's meant to be. And I think, like, so let's look at the offside thing. So in terms of offsides, the whole so football never used to have it. It never used to be a thing, and then they brought it in, and the whole reason was to stop unfair advantage to the attacker.
Hmm.
Now, if somebody's a leg, or even if they're a body width offside, is it really giving an unfair advantage to the attacker? They're still within touching distance of the defender.
Well, that's the whole thing, and but it's even to the point of the officials are getting worse because they have
Yeah,
the technology to fall back on. So
they're
like
relying on it
so
so
they don't
heavily.
have to make the decision there and then and they can kind of wait and hold out and go, no, it's a penalty, but hang on, we'll wait. I'm not going to give that, but hang on, we'll wait. So no, instead of your officials making a very good decision there and then, like a linesman and different things, and that whole rule, it annoys me all the time, is where a player can be 10 yards offside and they will play on the whole phase of
Oh,
play where they're running back to make a tackle and like people are throwing their bodies in front of it for then a linesman just to go like that. And I look at it and go, someone can get injured in that
yeah.
whole process, which
What if he
happened.
pulls his hamstring whilst he's sprinting back?
And it happened at Nottingham Forest where there was the centre half. I think he went into the post because
Oh,
he went
yes.
back to make a last ditch sliding tackle, but then it got given offside. And it's moments like that where I'm like, there's so many flaws in the whole technology. Now, I understand if it comes to massive games like you talk about, playoff finals and you talk about Champions League finals or maybe World Cup finals, and you bring in a VAR because there's so much money on the line, and like
Mm,
it is very critical that you get it all like perfectly right. But on a weekly basis, to be constantly using it to
mm.
slow down things on a constant basis, I look at it and just think it's not worth it. Like, and I
No.
understand some people have spoken about it and said, look, there is a lot of money on the line between promotions, relegations, and different things, and league status, that every chance matters. But let's be honest, if you're going to sit there and let's say it's an 89th, 90-minute winner, and someone jumps up, wins a header, and it comes down, and you know it hits off someone's hip and goes in, you want to run off and be with your fans and
Yeah.
celebrate and give it everything. But you see, every player is restricted in celebrating, because straight away you have to stand there and wait, look at the board to see if the goal is given. But the moment is past, and that's
Yeah.
why I always say football is moments.
Well,
So
you saw it with Casemiro the other night, where he scored a header. He was like a couple of
yeah,
inches offside, and he was like,
yeah, and it's
and
not
it's
that's not a celebration.
no, and I think I think it was against Republic of Ireland when Thierry Henry handballed it for the
Yeah,
World Cup qualifier. Now, I think that was almost the catalyst for the call for VAR.
and as I said, that's a crucial game in a playoff.
100%.
So I'd
And
say if that comes back to then, you go fair enough, perfect.
yes,
But
and the thing is, like he cupped the ball.
yeah, and he
So
cupped the
he
back
cupped the
into
ball,
play.
cupped it back into play, and now that everybody can agree on the whole planet, even Thierry Henry himself can agree that is handball. Not if, it gets lashed at you from 2 yards at
Yeah,
70 mile an hour and you go, whoa, like that, and it hits your hand and you go, well, what the fuck am I meant? I can't
yeah,
like disappear. And that's the thing for me is it's gone to over analysis of it was actually quite refreshing the other week. A young referee, new one that went to the screen and reviewed and said, "No, I'm sticking with my decision. I'm not."
yeah. And when you see stuff like that, that is probably what's needed more.
Yes.
Where you're almost cutting the middleman out and say, I don't have to always listen to VAR. Make your own decision. Like it's an assistant referee. It's a video assistant referee. Like, it's there to assist you. But if you believe and you watch it and go, actually, do you know what? But I think there's so many other referees out there that have been fast tracked through from lower leagues to the Premier League. And now when they start getting Premier League games to give themselves a name, they have to stick with VAR.
Yeah.
VAR know exactly what we're doing. So do you know what? If they've given the penalty, but I don't think it was, I'm still going to stick with what VAR said. And it's like, no, be your own individual. It's there to assist you. But if you genuinely look at that and say, I don't think it is, well, then don't give it.
Stick
Like,
with it. Yeah.
all of it, again, what we started out the whole thing with, all of it is down to opinion.
Mm.
Literally everything. Like, it's their opinion who are watching it on a video screen, to my opinion who was there live in the game, to an official's opinion who are linesmen who are trying to help me, and to a fourth official's opinion. So there's too many opinions for the one decision that sometimes they're still getting wrong.
Yeah.
So what's the point in even having it? Like,
Yeah.
that's the whole scary part. Like, if every decision that you look at go, it's down to interpretation. Well, how do you interpret the rule that you're reading? Is it you're doing letter of the law, or is it saying, well, in the proximity of what that is, it's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
handball? Where someone else might go, but no, it's ball to hand. His hand moved out, a silhouette of his body, blah, blah. It's a penalty. And you're like, right, but then that's two different interpretations of the same rule.
Same incident. Yeah. And I think like you've mentioned it already, like referees, one of the probably the most famous referee, like Kalina, you're never going to get referees like him anymore because of systems like VAR and because of this sort of bailout and cop out system of like, oh, I'm not going to make a decision there because VAR will pick it up if it's something that I've missed.
But
Um,
the whole enterprise of football, though, it's the same thing where the referee now over the intercom when he has to explain his decision, and I'm
yeah,
thinking it's not the
it's not
NFL.
his job. No, it's not his job.
Like,
Just it
just
is what it is.
let him make the decision. He doesn't have to explain it to the set of fans. He doesn't have to do anything. He just make the decision and get on with the game. Like, he doesn't have to do the intercom stuff. And like I said, it's just turning so commercialized now
Mm.
that because of all the money that's going in, the branding and everything like that, and you see all these multi-million-pound stadiums getting built because they can then coexist with NFL and put concerts in there. Like it's not just a football stadium. Like it's not just a pure out football stadium where you go on your
It's
Saturday and you celebrate.
sport cities.
Yeah, and I just I don't understand it. Like you say, if like the way the world is moving, like everything is becoming all this enterprise and commercialized stuff and whatever. But I just look at it and say, but realistically, all that anybody cries out for is the essence of what football is. And 90 minutes where a player forgets all his troubles, a fan forgets all his troubles, and you go and you support and you shout, you cry, you everything in that moment. That 90 minutes is almost like, do you know what, a sacred time that could be the reason someone leaves the house on a weekend or in a week. Like
I think
those are the bigger meanings.
that's the for me, that's the beauty of any sport, really. And I think that's why running's become, oh, it seems to have become a hell of a lot more popular than it used to be. With people doing fucking ultra marathons, crazy bastards. But I think that hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours training, whatever it may be, when you're on a pitch, it's sort of almost like a mental, it's like a shower for your mentality. It's like
Hmm.
you're washing off all the shit of the day. You're concentrating on the game and nothing else, and you can kind of forget all your problems. If you've got marriage problems, right? Well, that 90 minutes that doesn't exist because I've got this
Hmm.
guy to mark and I've got this guy to watch, and I'm playing it, and all your problems obviously they come flooding back afterwards, but they disappear for a bit. And I think that's the beauty of sport at its heart, and that's what it needs to sort of get back to, and that brings me sort of full circle. And we haven't spoke about it much, but seeing as we're coming up to the last 40 minutes, I suppose we should get on to it. Like, you had open heart surgery very young.
Hmm.
How did that come about initially? What, because obviously when, we just talked about troubles melting away when you're on a pitch, but this rose the troubles for you. Being on the pitch and being in that environment brought this trouble about because
Yeah, I think what really brought it about was it was something that I was informed that I was born with that I didn't
right,
know I had. Oh, I had a leak in the aortic valve, which when I moved away when I was 15, I didn't know I had any issues. Like I didn't have any symptoms, I didn't have anything. And I made my debut when I was 16, as I explained already. And then it was the next season after that, you came back and I got all like the medical screenings, like all the ECGs and echoes and all that type of stuff for me medical. And they found that I had a slight abnormality in me heart, which when the doctor came in, he explained to me and the physio saying I had a minor leak in my aortic valve, which I got told then was something that people can live with for their whole lives and not even realize they've got. But obviously, due to the stresses of football and the training and the excessive intensity of it every single day, obviously highlighted it a little bit. And I never had a medical before. I never needed to have one because I've never had a single issue. So as the weeks progressed in the preseason, they were keeping close eye on me, but heart rate monitors and GPS vests and all that were starting to come into football. So at the end of each week, the fitness coach would read out like all their heart rates and how people have worked hard and who's not working hard enough to who's working too hard. And I think when it got to my name, I think the maximum my heart rate went to was 200. I think it was 227, 228, up around that way. But the average was 203. I know that was for the day's training. So they kind of put two and two together of the aortic valve leak and the heart rate because they didn't know whether it was just my normal heart rate and me
mm,
just working really hard or if it was something to do with that. So I think after that, they sent off all the data to a specialist. The specialist then recommended for me to go to have an MRI scan. And then I went to have an MRI scan. And when I came out of the MRI, the doctor pulled me and the Derby physio at the time and literally said, Mark, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst and one being nothing. He said your valve is leaking about a 7 or an 8 back into your heart.
Oh shit.
So it was then at that point it got taken a little bit more serious. So I got all that information and sent that to another specialist, and then carried on with a little bit of training here and there. But again, like I wasn't feeling any symptoms. Like I just
Mm.
didn't know anything that was going on. And we went to another specialist who went over everything, and they said, Mark, oh well look, it looks like it's progressed a little bit. And he said, now that we can see the function of it, he said, I'm going to send this off to to a surgeon. But he said, people can live up. I said, you probably won't need an operation for another 30, 40 years. And then all of a sudden, with the 30, 40 years, still being 16, I sat there and thought, well, 30, 40 years, football will be long gone. I'll be grand by then. Everything will be all right. So then we went to see the surgeon, and my mum, my dad, and the Derby physio were all there. And I remember we sat in this little small office in the Glenfield Hospital in Leicester. And he literally came in, he put his diary down on his desk, he picked up this model heart, and he said, Mark, look, your heart is 3 times the size of what it should be for someone of your age. And if you don't have the operation done this year, you're going to die.
Wow.
So it kind of, at the time, I always remember thinking back that it was a moment where I just felt as though, like, you can't be speaking to me. Like the summer just gone, I played in front of 20,000 people, and now you're telling me that I'm going to die. Like, it just didn't seem real. And it was as we sat there speaking, and he was telling me about basically what it was, that with your heart being a muscle, and because the valve isn't working properly, it was a bicuspid valve. Normally you have three cusps in your valve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two of mine were working, one wasn't. So with that, with the blood leaking back in, he said your heart is beating twice as hard. He said to keep releasing the blood. But he said with that and your heart being a muscle, he said your heart was expanding. And he said with it expanding, he said it would get to a point where he said, you're lucky that you're fit. He said, you're lucky that you're a young, fit lad in the sport that you're in. Because he said, the stress that your heart is under at the moment, he said, I'm surprised it's still going.
Wow.
So realistically, what he said to me was, he said, Mark, look, you probably won't get to play football again. And my question to him before that was, can I still play football? And
Yeah.
his question and his answer to me was, I probably won't get to play football again. He said, I'd be lucky to play down the park with my friends. And that is the part that broke me. Like, the open heart surgery and telling me I had a year to live was almost kind of like a go over the head moment.
Mm.
When he told me I couldn't play football anymore was when I sat there and thought, this can't be happening. Like, this is all I want to do. Like, why did this have to happen to me? And you go through all of those feelings. And he went through the procedures that they can have, where there was one procedure where they can swap the valves around from the lung valve with your own valve. So they're all your own tissues. But then in years to come, the lung valve will need an operation on. I can get a pigskin valve, which is basically a prosthetic valve, but there's no guarantee that that will take to your body and last. And then there's a metallic valve, um, which means I'll be on blood thinners for the rest of my life, which means I won't get to play contact sport anymore. And I asked, like, what would probably be the best to give myself a chance of playing football, and they told me the pigskin valve, and I opted for that straight away. Like, there was no conversation with parents, there was no kind of let's sit down and have a think about this. Like, it was, I want to have the pigskin valve, and that was it. I made that decision. It literally went from, like I say, the 20 years into, he goes, right, he looked at his diary and said, I can do the operation in 2 weeks. And at that point, then there wasn't enough time to sit and think about things. Darby let me fly home to Dublin for 2 weeks to spend time with my family and different things. Again, you're having all the messages from family. Everything's going to be okay, Mark. You're going to be
Mm.
fine. And at one point in my mind, I was thinking, I'm doing this for football. Like, it's only going to be another injury. And then on the other side of me was kind of like, the realism that a 16-year-old should never think was, like, I could die. And I've never spoke about it too openly before, like, from all that time ago. But I remember, like, I had my funeral song picked out and everything,
Wow.
and I was only 16. And it was all about, like, the whole thing of just, I just went with everything. Like, there was no talk going into, like, maybe this could go right or maybe this could go wrong. It was literally just going to be, this has to happen. Like, this has to save me life. And I remember the night before the operation, I was sitting in the room and didn't really sleep too much. And then the operation was 6 hours long. And you come out of the operating theatre and you're sitting in the intensive care. My mum is there and different things. And as I said, as it was almost like a straightforward recovery, which is strange to say because it was almost like, look, you deal with the tubes in your neck and you have tubes in your stomach, and all of it are all new sensations and they all get taken out while you're awake. But I almost felt as though, like, right, I'm over the worst of it. Like, now it's about getting myself back fit. And I got sent home to Dublin for 3 months. But in all of this, Derby were amazing. Derby were the team that stuck by me. Nigel Clough is the manager. I got given a new 3.5 year deal when I was going in for open heart surgery. So, like, there was not much more they could have done. They were phoning me family. Like, Nigel Clough was personally phoning me, phoning me family, making sure they're okay, making sure I'm doing me walking while I'm at home in Dublin. He didn't have to do it. He's managing a championship team.
Yeah, yeah.
He didn't have to phone on a weekly basis to make sure Mark, a 16-year-old who has made one debut, make sure he's okay. How's everything going? How's the family? How are you feeling, Mark? Are you doing all these things? And that's like the added personal, like I say, the home from home feeling that Derby always gave me. And if anything, it made me want to get back more to kind of go, I want to repay the favour and give everything to this club that I possibly can, because they've stuck by me and my family through one of the most difficult times possible. And then I ended up going back to Derby in the January, and the training process was literally heart rate monitor, watch, go out on a jog with the fitness coach, and then you'd be
Mm.
jogging to get yourself, like, the heart rate up just a little bit, let it go back down, and then it was basically starting again like a blank canvas. Like, every fitness that I've ever had has just gone completely out the window, and you're starting from nothing to kind of go. Derby are winging it just as much as me, because nobody knows how to rehab a heart. Like, a physio knows how to rehab a hamstring and a quad and a leg. A fitness coach knows how to get people fit. But how do you rehab a heart? It's
So
almost like
what year was so obviously you 33, is that right?
2 or 3. So this
Yeah.
was 2009 going into 2010.
So in essence, that I mean, that was way before we had any incidents like Christian Eriksen or I mean, when was Fabrice Muamba? That was a bit after you, wasn't it? Would have been.
I'm not sure. That could have been, I wouldn't say similar timing, but I don't know whether that would have been after me.
But even then, that was like one of probably at the time the most high profile case of something of that
Yeah.
nature happening. Um, Whereas now you look at players like Christian Eriksen who clinically died on a pitch,
Hmm.
then go on to play 2-3 seasons for one of the biggest clubs in the world, and I think that understanding of that health condition has massively improved. Whereas at your, especially, you're 16 years old and a championship level, which don't necessarily have the resources of a Premiership club. It's new waters.
Yeah, like, everything was new waters, but again, it was like they just took the slow and steady progress of, how do you get a person fit? Someone who's not
Mm.
fit, how do you get them fit? And we just done it slowly but surely. And at some stages, I felt as though I was getting nowhere. But again, it goes back to, I had so much positive around me, from my family to certain lads on the team to the fitness coach to the club, like, friends, everybody were so positive around me to say, when you get back playing and when you get back on that pitch, we can't wait for you to see you playing. Like, there was never anybody saying, Mark, this might never happen.
Yeah.
You know what, Mark? What happens if it doesn't happen? Like, what are you going to do if football doesn't ever happen again? Like, there was never any of that. And I always look at that now and go, that never even dropped into my mind. It was only me that would ever think about that, to kind of go, I don't feel as though, because again, I was sitting and comparing myself to the lads who were training on a pitch next to me who haven't had anything wrong with them. And I look at their fitness and go, oh, I'm not as fit as them. And instead of, like, looking at my own situation to say, I've just had open heart surgery, I'm looking at somebody else to say, well, I'm not as fit as, yeah. But again, I start taking it step by step. And then the turning point was we went back to the hospital for a 6-month checkup, and I had to walk on a treadmill and do like a mini fitness test. And the mini fitness test was literally walk on a treadmill, Mark, and we'll notch it up bit by bit. And I was only walking, and straight away they were like, "Mark, you are flying through this. Like you're well ahead of where you should be." And that gave me the confidence to go, "Oh, for me, I'm going in the right direction. Instead of looking at where all the other lads are, I'm going in the right direction." So then it gave me that little bit more of a confidence, and it almost instilled a bit of confidence into the fitness coach and the physio to kind of go, they knew they were on the right lines of doing the right things. And then before I knew it, I had the operation in the October of 2009, and I got back playing in April at the back end of that season. And
Wow.
it took me about 7, I think about 7, 8 months, and I got back playing for the academy. And it was just something because once I played my very first game, it was like an in-house game in the training ground, and I got 45 minutes. But it was
What's that?
almost like
What's that? What was that feeling like? As soon
I was
did
li-
you like? It must be so conflicting. I mean, as you actually played, because that'd have probably been a blubbering mess. But it must be so conflicting of like relief, happiness, joy, fear at the same time as well. That ultimately, what was 12 months ago inconceivable, it wasn't going to happen. In
Mhm.
fact, at the time they told you, you might not have been there.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. It's like everything flooded into it. But I think the only thing I was scared of was thinking, I hope I'm still the same player. Like that was my
Right.
own that was my own concern for me to kind of go, I hope I'm still the same player that I was before. Like, and that's me just putting the kind of self criticism and the self doubt all on myself. Like nobody else was going to question anything.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
don't get me wrong. We had the whole medical department who were standing on the sidelines and waiting on me to kind of play the game. But I think after I played it, it almost just felt as though because again, football was that distraction for me. Once I
Mm.
was in the middle of a game, look at I could have had I did have the open heart surgery. I said it could have been the worst of the worst cases. I said once I'm in a game, I don't think of anything other than the game I'm in. And like we spoke about saying it's that moment to switch your mind off. Like once the ball is there to be blocked, the instinct was still there to block it. The
Yeah,
instinct
yeah.
was still there to throw in and make a tackle. The instinct was still there to win a header. Like I didn't care about my chest or my heart. Now after the game, I'd go, "Oh, my chest is a
Shit.
bit stiff."
Yeah.
But everybody was just always like, "How you feeling? How's this? How's that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was fine. Brilliant, you're back." And
Yeah.
then the academy, we played against Manchester United's academy, and it was on MUTV, which then gave me mum and dad a chance to watch me back home in Ireland. So me
That might have
dad,
been
or
against, were you Oliver Norwood?
no, it was Paul Pogba, Jesse
Right.
Lingard,
Well,
uh, Arnold
Oliver,
Cole.
yeah, I played with, I remember I played one game with Oliver because he's from Burnley, like I am. And he played, I was in the same year as his brother, who was
Okay.
3 years older than Oliver. And I remember he joined a training session for, I think it was like one of the local teams, and he joined in with our age group, and I think he scored 6. And it was like, in fact, I won't name him, but he made the goalkeeper cry.
Nice.
And that's when you kind of knew, like, oh yeah, he was going to be
Yeah,
something
he's a step
special.
above.
But
Yeah.
I know he was at United, and then I think he's still playing. But then he played for Ireland as well internationally.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I
No, yeah,
just
grand. No,
thought it
literally.
was against Ollie at that point.
Yeah, nice. But I remember, like, when we got to play against Man United at that time, it was the first time my dad was getting to watch me play, and my mum was saying like he was sitting at home and he was nervous to like see the screen, and he was hoping, I hope Mark is still the same Mark. Like, don't be afraid. And he said it was within the first 5 minutes, like a shot came in, and I think I blocked that, and it bounced off my chest, and my dad straight away just sat back, and my mum said that he just was sitting there thinking, he's back. Like
Yeah,
he's fine. Like because I was still doing the same stuff that I was doing before. But like that whole confirmation of just being back playing, like there was no agenda for football then. There was no
Mm,
kind of, I need to progress and get here and do this. It was more about, do you know what? I'm just glad to be playing. I'm
mm.
just happy to be playing. And I think that brought out more again of a deeper love for football, to understand it a bit more, to kind of say, do you know what? We can all strive to want to be Premier League players and all of that. But you know what? Once I'm playing, I'm happy, because it
Yeah,
could easily not be. And I got back and I made the bench for the first team. At the end of that season, we played Cardiff at home, and I never came on or played, but I got to make the bench, which was almost, I think, a nice touch what Nigel Clough done, as in to say, like, a bit of recognition to kind of go, he's back, and you've
yeah.
done so well, and well done for the year. So, like, the most significant year of my football career was probably the year that I played hardly any football, because
Mm.
the stuff that I actually got from it was kind of like, it made me feel like a man of steel a little bit, to kind of go, well, if I can get back from that, anything is possible. Like, nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah,
And
and it takes like sport's really good, and I mean sport across all levels. I know one of the best lessons, and I've mentioned this on the podcast previously. Is me and my daughter every now and again we like to go hiking mountains up the Lake District. It's one of the my most favorite places in the world, and we did Scarfell Pike, which is the tallest mountain in England. One Friday, uh, and on the way back down, the weather changed, like as it always does in this
yeah,
beautiful country. It changed, went rain sideways, 60-mile-an-hour winds. It was frightening, and we had big packs on. So obviously, we're then like drowned rats. It's at the back end of the walk. Everything's heavier. You're tired. It's freezing cold, and she basically froze and started crying.
yeah,
And I had a little pep talk with her and I said, look, all you need to do is just keep putting one foot in front of the cry, let it all out. Whilst you're doing that, just one foot in front of the other, and we keep going. And it was that bad, I must admit, and I'm not too proud to admit. It got to a point where I thought I might not, I might not make it back here.
yeah,
It's really bad. Lo and behold, 2 hours later, we actually got back to the car, stripped off, got in the car, heated seats on, heated steering wheel, radio on, and I looked across, and the biggest grin on her face, and
yeah.
and the words came out was, "I did it." And it's like that lesson, I know for a fact when she gets to 20, 30, 40, and something difficult happens, she knows she's got that little extra in that tank. She knows that, oh God, this seems like hopeless, but she'll keep going because she's already sort of delved to them depths within herself. And
100%.
it must be the same for you. Like, any challenge that arises now within your life. I've been deeper. I've been darker and deeper than this. Yes, it's bad, but it can get worse. I know. So
Yeah,
I'm all
and I
right.
think that's exactly how I've seen a lot of stuff. My whole career panned out that a lot of people didn't know at the time when I was going through the career, was at the end of every season I was having a heart scan to see if I was able to play the following season. So, like, the
Yeah.
years that I've played, there was no guarantee on anything. If I was signing a 3, 4 year deal somewhere, if I was signing a 2 year deal, I didn't know if I was going to be able to play through that. But I just never focused on what it might not be. But at the end of every season, I'd get a heart scan. They would say if the valve is okay or if it's not, and then I'd carry on. And that was the only thing. And the only time that thoughts would come back on me heart would be, let's say, a week before that heart scan. I'd always sit there and go, well, I didn't feel anything before, but that doesn't mean it's going to be nothing, because I have everybody saying, Mark, you're going to be fine. Look at, you're fit, well
Yeah.
and healthy. You just played. And I goes, right, but I was fit, well and healthy before I had this routine medical, and they found something. What makes them not? And it's all the what ifs start coming back. And like I say, when I've looked back over my life, the majority of stuff that makes you doubt yourself, it was always just me. Like, it literally was just me, because you always have the people around you that you want to push it in the right direction, but then it's
It's
always you that want to go, what if?
That's it. It's generally the irrational stuff that comes to the fore, and your mind runs away with you. When in reality, if you actually look at evidence, it, like you couldn't
Oh,
be
a million
further from
percent.
the
If
truth.
you're able to sit there and look at everything to go, well, I did have a good season and this went really well and whatever, it's almost like I was scared of it being taken away from me, and that's
Mm.
that's all that it ever was. But I used to always think, right, but because my career is such on a time scale like that, the reason why I always say that the significant part was the open heart surgery because it made me enjoy every last season like it was going to be my last.
Well,
So every
that's
season
yeah.
that I had, and this is why when certain injuries happened, like an ACL or a microfracture to my knee, or if I was out injured with certain things, that would affect me more because I always felt that I'm wasting time
You're
because I
limited,
know that
yeah.
this might be my last season and I've just done an ACL. This might be my last year. But you know what? I'll always still look back at everything that I've done through the career and still look at it to the point now of saying, do you know what? Even though when people look at it and say you retired at 27, that was so young, I look at it and say, well, that's 11 more years than any
Then
hospital
what you
ever gave me at the
yeah.
start. Like everything is that little bit of a spin to say, well, do you know what? I've had some of the best memories and I don't have a single regret in my career because every single year got given everything. It doesn't mean it went perfect. It doesn't mean it went great, but it got given everything. And that is the
Mm.
only part that I look back on to kind of say, yeah, do you know what? I've had the injuries and yeah, managers didn't like me. And yeah, do you know what? We lost a game or two or we lost in a playoff final. I got a red card. Yeah, do you know what? But I got a chance to play at Wembley. And do you know what? I scored a great goal here at Newport that has probably kept me still here for 10 years later. Like there's all these things that have happened for so many times. But you know what? The one thing that I'll always say for myself was I'm glad I haven't got a single regret, that I didn't look too far ahead, that I
Mm.
just gave everything for that one season. And whether that was going to be the best season of my life or not, it was good for me.
Do you have like a I mean, this is probably the skeptic, or the cynic within me, that obviously because of what you've been through in that experience, and like you've just mentioned, if you've got an ACL, you're a bit like, well, fucking hell, this might be my last season. This has really annoyed me. Not for the reasons that most people would be annoyed at getting an ACL. Um, do you look at people like when you see like players have food poisoning so they can't play? Do you look at that now and think, fucking hell, like buck up, buttercup?
Do you
You
know what? I've seen it with a couple of things like in football where yeah, I think certain things where there'll be a lot of people that will look back in their careers for certain injuries or certain things that they didn't play a game for. Whereas I just believe that essence of football to play because you love the game. Now,
Mm.
don't get me wrong, I'm not saying not every footballer doesn't love the game because to
They
be a
wouldn't be in
footballer,
it. Yeah, yeah.
you wouldn't be in it. But I think there's a massive element of football now that is based around get in and get out. Like,
Mhm.
go in, get what you can get, and leave. Like, there's not about a standard. There's not about like I've seen players drop out of Championship League One sides to go play in the conference because they're getting given 2, 3 thousand more pound. Now,
Right.
as you say, that's all well and good, and if that's the intention, but I always say the essence of when I was in football was, do you know what? There was a steady progression. There was always like, if you want to play in the league, stay in the league. Like, you don't want to go play non-league. It's no disrespect to non-league, but you don't want to go play there because the opportunity is in the league, and then you want to progress it that way. Whereas I just feel as though, especially now, not that people are using football somewhat for a career, but I
Mm.
think some people use it for the publicity of it. Like
Yeah.
young players
Well,
nowadays earning the
everybody wants a brand, and they want to be, a personal brand, and they want to be like, I think,
like
that's when
football is almost like a stepping stone in their life where
yeah.
it's gonna build my career, which like I say is brilliant
It
and it's great and I understand it. But also on the other side of it, it's almost like right, but you can't lose out on the love that like you first had for it. Like miss don't miss the views that you had to what got you in this position. Like
yeah.
give everything, enjoy it for the most that you can possibly enjoy it, and give everything to it. And if it doesn't work out, fine. But don't do it with an agenda behind it. Do it because you love it. Do it
Yeah.
because oh well, I'm gonna make the best of this because you won't ever get it back.
It's like the only time I can sort of abide a transfer or people speaking out is when it comes down to game time. Because I know from personal experience, if I'm not getting played on a Saturday or a Sunday,
Hmm.
it annoys me. I
Yeah.
would, and I would consider dropping down a level if it meant that I got a hell of a lot more game time. I would consider moving clubs, even if I loved the club that I was at, just to make sure that I got more game time. Because that to me is the more I could play, the more I can play. I'd still do it on a Saturday now, and it's different with hockey because obviously it's
Yeah,
roll on, roll off, and it's a completely different environment. But when I get, I still have the football strap when I get
yeah,
subbed off, and it's like, oh, fuck's sake, like, and you only spend like maybe 10 to 15 minutes off the pitch, and then you go back on again. But it's like I still have that football mentality of like, oh well, I did something wrong, and it's not the case within hockey. And I think that's the difficult thing. But I can always understand that mindset. So what I wanted to ask, and we'll probably end on this, is in terms of going from where you were at, and you've then made it back, and you're on the bench in the last game of the season, and you that sort of tip of the hat from Nigel Clough of well done. You're back in the fray. You've made it back. Then you're taking everything year by year, and in essence, and I think football becomes somebody's identity. Your job, anybody's profession becomes who they are. That's one of the first questions people ask when they meet people is, well, what do you do?
yeah,
Um, and then at 27, what happens at that point that not only past the past issue at 16 rears its head again, but at the same time that almost identity breakdown of this is who I've been for the past 10, 11 years. Who am I now?
yeah. So it was during COVID. I think it was the season is just finished because the pandemic was starting to happen and everybody was getting told football's going to go on a hold for a couple of weeks until we figure out what's going on. And so all of that was happening. And we still got given like a off season program where you have to go out and stay fit, whether that was cycling, walking, running, whatever it was. And we were having nice weather at the time as well. So I was out cycling and I was keeping fit. And it was getting like later down the line, weeks and months later, obviously football hadn't started back and they were talking about how they're going to do a points per game type thing and who's going to stay up and who's not and all these different things. And I remember I went on one cycle and it was a long old cycle with me and one of the other lads. And I got back on one of the evenings and sitting on the sofa behind me, I remember there was just one evening I just ended up getting like a massive thump in my chest. Now I could feel like the veins in my neck were pulsing and my hands were getting like proper sweaty and I could feel my head getting lightheaded and I was just feeling as though like I'm burning up, but I didn't know what it was. And then I had to keep coughing because whatever it was kept catching me breath. So I remember laying in bed that night and I'm laying on my left hand side and every time I'd lay on my left hand side I just was finding it hard to breathe and I kept coughing and something would keep catching me breath. So I found our club doctor the next day and explained all of this, and he told me it's something potentially called an optopic beat, which means when your heart kind of skips that beat, you
Yeah,
cough,
yeah,
get it back into rhythm again or wherever. And to him, it seemed like that. I spoke with him again saying, look, if something doesn't feel right. And I said, the more exercising I'm doing, I said, the weaker I'm feeling. I said, the more exercising I'm doing, I said, the more tired I'm getting. And I was starting to get really frustrated because I was thinking, if we were to start back training next week, it looks like I've been doing absolutely nothing with
nothing.
me off season time. I'm going to look terrible. So that was the only thing that was actually going through my mind. And it was with that. Then I said it to the doctor again, and he was like, "Look, Mark," he said, "like obviously with the hospitals being busy, he said I'll try and get you a scan in Cardiff." So he worked towards getting me a scan in Cardiff, and with that, obviously nobody's allowed in the hospital, and I got to go into the hospital in Cardiff and had the echo cardiogram done and the ECG. And I sat there with the doctor. He came in and he said, Mark, he said, your valve is leaking. And he said, it's leaking very badly. And the minute he said that to me, I remember I just like looked down to the ground and I just burst into tears because I always knew that at the age of 16, I always told me mum and dad this and everything that one operation was going to be for my career and the next one was going to be for my life. Like I wasn't going to do this 4, 5, 6 times just to play football for 6 years. Like I
Yeah,
wasn't going to do that. Like my first operation was basically to see how far it can get me. And then the next one was going to be, this is for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not doing this again. Or else, let's be honest, I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not something that you would you like to do every year, would it?
Exactly. But it was one of these things that I ended up just bursting into tears. And the doctor was asking me, he's like, "Why are you crying?" I was like, "I know I need to retire now." He goes, "No, there's other procedures that can happen." I said, "No." I said, "You don't understand." I said, "I've had this when I was 16. I said, I've always said that. I'm sticking to it. I said, I'm not doing this again to carry on another 3, 4 years to then have to have it again. I said, I don't want that hanging over me. And I know no operation is 100% guaranteed,
Mm.
but at least this next one would be a guarantee better for my life than anything." So I was with my ex partner at the time and she was outside. And I remember I went outside and I started crying in the car, phoned my mum straight away. And I said, "Mum," I said, "my valve is leaking again." She said, "Okay, no problem. I'll fly over tomorrow." She straight away got on a flight straight over from Dublin. And it was basically, we just had to figure out what was actually happening and what was going on. And the days and weeks were passing. I put out onto social media that I needed to retire. I was making phone calls to the manager. And for me, it was almost like there was so much happening. It was COVID, there was retiring, and now there's open heart surgery. And it's like, with that storm that's happening above you, like, the retirement felt like nothing. Like, I was able to make that decision. And once I thought I was putting it out there, because in your own head, you downplay your own career and you kind of look at it and think, well, I didn't really do much in the game. I didn't win a World Cup. I didn't do all these mad different things. I was a footballer that played a professional career and now it's done.
To be fair, there's not that many people that have won a World Cup, though, Mark.
No, exactly. But like, it was just how, like, you kind of come to terms with it in your head, like, you downplay your own success.
Mm.
And I put it out there on my social media. I put it out there on Facebook, and before I know it, it's Sky Sports News. I have ITV, BBC Wales, um, the Newport County page itself. I had all players that I've played with, players that I've played against, all getting in touch with me, and I'm thinking, I didn't think that it would make that much of an impact of retiring. So it almost kind of made me feel that little bit better about my career, to kind of go, I actually did do okay. Like, for the
Mm.
harshness I was putting on it and being hard on myself putting on it, I look at it and say, do you know what? I actually did do okay and I'm actually proud of it. And
Yeah, you
to have that,
obviously had an impact.
yeah, and that pride that I had with it was something that, do you know what? It probably led on a couple of years down the line to why I obviously speak so highly and proudly of everything that I've done. But that made me feel that little bit better. And I thought, you know what? No, I'm glad of the career that I had. And yeah, like, you know what? I'm delighted with what I've done. So then, as the days and months were passing on, I started to almost deteriorate, where I was getting panic attacks. Now, I remember I was sitting on the sofa behind me and my mum was sitting on the other sofa next to me. And out of nowhere, I just felt this feeling of my head was going really lightheaded, and me palms and everything was starting to sweat again, and my heart was starting to thump through my chest, and I just honestly felt as though I'm gonna pass out here. So I opened up the door behind me, and my mum was like, "What's going on? What's wrong?" I said, I said, I feel dizzy." I said, like, "I'm going to, like, pass out." So my ma grabbed my hand, and then we found an ambulance. And it was the first time that I actually got really scared, that my ma was, like, sitting there praying, and she was
Mm.
like, "Everything's gonna be okay, just keep breathing." But she was, like, holding my hands, and I didn't like seeing my ma worry about me like that. Like,
Well,
that was breaking me
I,
more.
do, I don't mean to laugh, but it won't help if somebody's praying and you're going through that at that time.
But you know what I
It's
mean?
yeah,
It was that type of seriousness that, like, I've never faced that. But what I didn't have at 16, I have now, is every last symptom, from your palpitations to your
yeah.
breathlessness to your tiredness to your fatigue to everything that you normally should feel with a heart issue, that I didn't feel at 16. I'm getting it all in full force right now. And then I got told it was a panic attack. And then the panic attack, I end up going up to Glenfield Hospital for them to have a review of everything. I remember the doctor spoke to my mum and said, "Look, we're going to have to admit him into hospital now." So I got admitted into the hospital, and I was there for, I think I got admitted in like the middle to the end of June. And then I was in hospital for about 4 weeks before they gave me a date of when my operation was going to be. So I was in the hospital, and I think it was a couple of days before the operation date, which was the 2nd of July. I ended up one evening having to press the call button for the nurse because I started to break out in sweats again, and I started to feel like I was going to vomit. And as I said, I started to actually then get sick. The nurse came in, my heart rate was through the roof. They thought I had an infection in my valve. They thought I might have had endocarditis, I think the name of it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
And with them thinking that, and obviously with this state that my valve was in, they said, like, that's not great, but we need to make sure it's not an infection. So I get all the urine tests done. But they said, Mark, because if it is an infection, we can't operate on you in 2 days' time. So then all of a sudden, as the days passed, like I'm getting pumped with like penicillin nonstop. I'm getting pumped with all sorts of like antibiotics and everything. And like I say, feeling like so much worse than I've ever felt before in my life.
The
And
palpitation, I've had palpitations myself, and
yeah,
for those that haven't had it, it always it's so hard to describe to somebody what it's like,
yeah,
because it's almost like your heart letting you know that it's still in your chest,
yeah.
because you don't generally feel it on a day-to-day basis, unless you take your pulse or whatever. But the new massage guns,
Hmm.
the vibrating gun, it's almost like having one of them go off in your chest,
Yeah, a million
and
percent.
it's sort of like it takes over and you go, "Oh, what's that?"
And
And
all
then
you can do is focus on it.
yeah, and then all of a sudden it goes as quick as it comes, but it could last, for a minute or two. And it is frightening. It's
Yeah.
it's one of the
And
most frightening things I've experienced.
they were the things that when it was happening. So I remember it was the night before my operation, and the doctor came in, and I got moved onto the main ward now, like the recovery ward, rather than being on the side wards waiting on operation. I'm in a room now full of people who are recovering, but I still haven't had my operation. But I'm hooked up to every big machine behind me because the doctor walked in that evening and said my valve was hanging on by a thread. And he said if I didn't have this operation done very, very soon, he said if the valve breaks off overnight, circulates your body, and he said gets lodged in your brain, he said you're dead. So he said the reason you're on this ward is said we have to keep a really close eye on you because it could take less than 24 hours for that valve to break off. And he said, you're dead. Now, he said, we've had a patient in, he said 3 weeks ago that happened to, so we've had to take it real serious. Now, in the meantime, I didn't know this, but they found me mum who was in the living accommodation across from me because she wasn't supposed to be, but because she came over from Ireland, she had to be. They were on the phone to my mum telling her that she has to potentially come across to the hospital because it's not looking good for me. And then later on that night, I'm on the phone to my mum, like trying to tell her everything's going to be okay. And my mum's on the phone to me saying, Mark, look, everything's going to be all right. You'll get your operation tomorrow. Everything will be great. And like, it was almost like two of us are speaking, but we both know what we've just both been told, but nobody's saying a thing. It was all
It's
about just keep talking the positive.
the unwritten, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
And
hard space to be in.
yeah.
I've not been, I have been in that space, obviously, with grandparents, and I must admit, it is. But the last time I did it, I knew it was the last time that I was going to see my nana. That I wasn't going to see her again alive, and it was almost before I left. It was almost the fuck it moment of
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say now everything that I kind of are scared and don't want to say, because I'm not going to get another chance. And I must admit, it's probably one of the most awkward I've been in. I've been in some very awkward situations, but that is probably one of the most awkward situations I've been in where, and it's not bad. You're not saying anything awful, but you're saying something to somebody that, like, for yourself, you're in a situation where obviously you're worried that, you've just been told that within 24 hours you might not be here,
Hmm.
and your mum doesn't want to affirm that, but at the same time, she wants to say everything, all the
Yeah.
unwritten and all the
100%.
unspoken things, to make sure that nothing's left unsaid.
Yeah, I think like you talk about like the undertone of a conversation was more about probably tell each other how much we love each other without having to say the reasons why.
Yeah.
It was like kind of we just we sat and we spoke, and it was tough to have that conversation because it's like you don't know if you're waking up in the morning or not. So I tried to like prolong it because I didn't want to sleep because I was thinking to myself I might not wake up tomorrow. And obviously, my mom ended up getting off the phone, and then you end up like putting the text back and forward between each other and stuff like that. And it was just something where it, like looking back at it, it seems like very surreal, but at the
Mm.
same time, it's part of the whole like kind of story of what went on. Really, like the kind of little bits, the ins and outs of the harder parts. Because I always look at it and say, when I went in for the operation and it's 7.5 hours, like the one thing my mom did say to me was, I know nobody's allowed in the hospital, but trust me, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I remember like they come in, they give you the tablets the next morning, and when they give you the tablets the next morning, you're getting wheeled down and you're kind of spaced out of it, to be honest. But me ma, like I always laugh about it. I said it's like the scene out of Mr. Bean, like where he has the mask and he pulls it down. So I was getting wheeled down and my ma was like dressed in scrubs and she was right next to the bed. Now, that was something where, like, I don't think anybody would have gotten away to say, no, you can't come into this hospital. So they done the best that they could for her. And then, as I said, I went in for the operation and it took 7 hours, 7.5 hours. And when I got wheeled out, my mum was saying the doctor spoke to her and said it was a successful operation, but the state his heart was in, I'm surprised he's still alive.
Do you think football, like obviously the fitness levels that you were at, they were the thing that sort of kept
I
you
I I
alive
I
and
would I would say possibly, like, me being as fit as I was or being in a professional setting, I think it was something that me heart was putting up with the strain.
yeah.
But he said, like, the way the valve was and how it deteriorated and different things like that, they said I should have been dead months ago. And
Wow.
they were surprised I was still playing I was still playing football in those previous months just before COVID. So I was kinda lucky that COVID happened, to be
Yeah.
honest, in the nicest way, or else I would have carried on playing and as you say,
Who
potentially wouldn't
knows?
be sitting here doing the podcast right now. But
Yeah.
as I said, as the time went on, you kind of stay in the hospital again and they think you've got the infections. And I spent 4 or 5 weeks in there, but I always say, like, everything that happened in the hospital, I started off exactly like I was when I was 16. Everything was going progressively well. And within a week, they kind of get the discharge papers ready and they say on your way and then deal with everything going forward. And then after the week that I was in recovery, the last day of it, I remember I was on an exercise bike because I'd done all the walking I needed. I was up and downstairs, and they said, "Well, look, you've done everything you needed to do. Like, what can we do, like, to do a little bit more?" And I was like, "Well, if you have an exercise bike, that'd be brilliant." So I remember I just sat on an exercise bike, and I felt as though like I'm achieving so much. This is brilliant. Like, look, I'm over it so quickly and wherever. And then that evening, inflammation came into my chest, but they thought was an infection. So again, I went from I'm feeling so great with that, then it just knocked me back like about 10 steps. And I felt as though I'm never going to get out of this place. Everything is through a FaceTime. And look, don't get me wrong, technology is great that you can FaceTime family and different things, but
Yeah.
it's not the same as when I was 16 and you had them sitting by your bed and you have them going on a walk with you up and down the corridors. And everything was just, even as though you felt as though everyone was there, like everything was your own motivation, like, oh, I have to get out of bed, rather than someone saying, come on, let's go for a walk. And that was probably like one of the toughest parts. And then when they thought I had the infection, I get told I might have to get opened back up again to get rid of the infection. And then that sent me back even more because I was thinking, I already felt so frail with all the weight that I lost. I thought, I can't go through this again. And I just burst into tears, and then more fear came. And then it was only the doctor came around after a couple of days and spoke to me and kind of kept me up to date with everything. And all he said to me was, he was like, look, Mark, he said, the doctors who have said to you, that you need to be opened up again. They haven't dealt with as many open heart surgeries as I had. So he said, what has happened is where your aortic root has been shrunk back down to size, inflammation has filled up the gaps around it. And that is what's giving you the discomfort and all the symptoms. And he was like, and if we were to open you back up, he said, that would be last resort to
Mm.
try to get rid of the inflammation. So he said, you've got nothing to worry about, a couple of anti-inflammatories, and you should be okay. So again, I burst into tears because again, my mind was racing, thinking, "Oh, here we go." And again, like I said, this time around, I felt so much worse because I didn't have that positive reinforcement around me, where people are telling me everything's going to be okay, and when you get this, and when
Well,
this happens,
you're a man now. You're not a 60-year-old boy
yeah,
anymore.
exactly. And that's and that's the worst thing about it, that you understand everything a doctor's telling you, because
Mm.
normally, when you're in a hospital, like your family or whoever can take doctors to the side and say, look, tell us everything and we'll relay it back or whatever it might
Yeah,
be.
yeah. There's that
But
filter.
yeah, whereas there's no filter with these doctors. They come in and tell you straight to your face, and I'm having to relay it back home to me mum, relay it back home to me dad, and say, oh, they said this to me today. And it just felt as though there was never ending news coming my way, rather than someone saying, Mark, everything's going great. Look, you're on the right track. Everything's going brilliant. And nothing to give you that little bit of hope. And then by the time I was getting released out of hospital, I think I just wasn't myself.
Mm.
That's when probably all the trouble started, like mentally more than anything. So even coming home to my apartment, I felt as though I was scared because I haven't got the click of a button of a doctor to come running to me aid if I felt anything. And that's where I just slowly declined more and more because I didn't want to leave the bed because I was protecting my valve. The valve I've got on my chest now, I can hear it clicking all the time. So with being able to hear it click all the time, whether it goes too slow, too fast, or it's just normally beating, I was so kind of fixated on it. I couldn't take my mind away from it.
But that must be really because I've found this out. Like, I've only ever been under the knife twice in hospital, and it was nothing serious. Like it was knees because my knees are shit. For the want of a better phrase, I personally haven't evolved properly to walk upright. That's what I've put it down to. Is my knees are just not. I'm meant to be like on all fours, like an
Yeah.
actual animal instead. Um, but that when you're in, you'll have seen it in sort of dramas and stuff when people are in hospital and they've got the ECG machine, and it's generally it's behind them so that they can't see it, and it's either faced away. And I found out the reason for that is because people, when they can see it, they're able to control the heart rate, so that they're able to and sometimes go into cardiac arrest because they bring it down so low. And that must be sort of really strange to be able to hear that stuff.
Yeah.
And
That whole thing, and it was something that I was never told about. Like
yeah,
like you'll hear the click, and I just thought, right, I might hear it the odd time, but like even sitting here now, I can feel it just pushing against my chest, and it's not even pushing against my chest, but the whole kind of feel of it is
mm,
just constant. Now I'm used to it now,
yeah,
but back then it felt as though it was driving me insane because if I was laying in bed at night and I felt it go too slow, I'd jump into panic because I thought my heart was ready to stop. And then when I jump into panic, it was going too fast, so then I couldn't relax. And everything was just like a whole new sensation, and I just couldn't settle. And I remember when I went back for my 6 month checkup, I cried to the doctor saying, does this ever stop? Like, does this ever stop? Like that, the intensity of like feeling the thump on my chest constantly, is it something that will settle over time? And he said, oh, you'll just get used to it. And
yeah.
I just like to hear it like that. I was just thinking, I don't think I can take this. Like, it was more about, I was contemplating, did I make the right choice going with a metallic valve? Should I just got a prosthetic one, and all these different things? And then as the weeks were going on, again, I wasn't leaving the bed. I started doing cardiac rehab, which is usually you go to a group of people and they help you with exercises, whereas this one is over the phone.
Mm.
So
That's due to COVID.
due to COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
So like everything was just kind of like, as I said, not normal. And it was as the weeks were going with that, like they'd phone me up and say, Mark, look, on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday, we want you to go out and walk 20 minutes each day. 20 minutes wherever you need to walk 20 minutes, and then that'll be you done, and we'll do that. And then the next week, but every time beforehand, they always do a form of how do you feel, scale of 1 to 10, and all that. And they came back and said, Mark, you're severely depressed.
Mm.
And I said, I'm not. I said, like, I've just had open heart surgery. Like, that's the reason I don't want to leave my apartment or go out of bed. Or, like, I used to be too afraid to stand up in the shower for too long because when I stood up straight, my heart would just go. And I just couldn't settle it. And I would panic
Yeah.
that I'd have to sit down straight away. I couldn't stand up for too long because I'd panic that I was ready to faint and fall over. Like, there was just nothing about me that was able to settle at all.
I
And
think I think it's really difficult sometimes because for those people that are listening that haven't had like a major injury, whether that be, open heart surgery, which is like up there, and brain surgery, which is up there, or whether it be like a physical injury like a broken leg, or ligaments or anything along those lines. The actual physical element of it is almost the easy bit to heal. That's it's pretty matter of fact, and it is simple. It's like, right, well, if you've got a broken leg, we put the bones back together, we put you in part, and it heals itself. But the psychological element after that, and we've seen it. We're on football. Look at players like Luke Shaw, players like if you remember Lucas Neal, that
mhm,
was one of the worst leg breaks that I've ever seen. Like, although your bones heal, and clearly now, Luke Shaw's started every single game for United this season,
yeah,
funnily enough, which is unbelievable.
yeah, which is
Um, but you look at that, and physically, he's probably not changed since 12 months after he broke his leg. But
mhm,
psychologically, it's probably taken him years and years and years to get back that mentality of, yeah, I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with my leg. That, yeah, and I've experienced it with my knee, and I still do it now. Is when you stretch him for a ball, or you go in and you give your knee a little check and just make sure, is it still okay? Is it still
mhm,
all solid? Because that psychological element is almost forgotten about. It's not treated really. I mean, I think it's getting better, but I think doctors, as soon as they've done the physical element, it's like, yeah, you're on the way to mending.
yeah. And I think that's the whole kind of when I speak about softening the blow. Like doctors will literally say, right now you're fixed, it's over to you, and
Yeah.
it's almost kind of like right, but when it's over to me, like how is it that I deal with these things? And you speak about injuries, like I've had ACL injuries when I played, I've had microfractures, I've had like all the 9 yards of operations that have happened to me, and it's always like you say the mental side of it. But this time, it always felt as though it was life or death. It never
Mm,
felt as though it's an injury and I'm having a setback in my knee. Is it okay and all that? It was always like, oh my god, the next step could be I could pass out here and I'm not waking up. I
yeah.
could die. I could die tomorrow, and these things are happening. Like the way I look at it, I was surviving every day. And at the end of every day, like I would be exhausted just from feeling as though, "Oh, I've made it through. Right now, on to the next one." And I wasn't sleeping at night because I was too afraid to sleep because I didn't feel I was going to wake up. So then the next day would be even more exhausted because I'm waking up tired. And it was just a never ending spiral.
And you've got no release of football or sport, which is what you had previously, because
Well,
you
exactly.
can't switch off. Like I had Mike McDonald, who's he's an author. He's been through psychosis twice, um, and really interesting. But he meant like sleep as well. Like he wasn't able to sleep, which obviously exacerbates everything to
Hmm.
the end. Like people don't put as much value on sleep as they should do. And the thing is your body, when you've gone through this major trauma in sleep, would be healing, and that's where obviously most of your healing gets done is in your sleep. And if you're not doing that, then
Yeah.
it's only going to run you down.
No, 1,000,000%. And that's exactly how it felt. So, like, every day was getting more exhausting and it felt like more survival, which then would coincide with more panic attacks, would then coincide with the whole what if and the health anxiety side of stuff going, well, this is a bit painful. What could this be? And then everything on the TV was COVID, this, and another 100,000 people have died. And I literally just felt as though like I was the most fearful person, and that was never me as the person I like was when I played football. And I used to always think that of saying, when I like the person I am now, this isn't me and it can't be me. There was always that deeper feeling that this is not going to be me for the rest of my life. But then it got to a point where it was like 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm phoning one of my older teammates who lived down the road from me at the time, asking him to come collect me. And he brings me around to his place, packs me up some clothes, and I'm sitting there crying in front of him and his fiance saying, I think this is me for the rest of my life and I don't like it. Because I just couldn't shake the fact of everything I seen on telly was people dying. Everything I felt inside myself was I'm trying to survive to not die. I don't want to die. It was the biggest fear of my life. And everything was just all under one umbrella. And I haven't even dealt with the retirement yet of me never
Mm.
getting to play football again. And I don't get to deal with the fact of, well, walking outside and if I get a flu or if I get a cold, I could actually potentially do it. And all of these things that were just flowing through my head. And I started doing counselling because once I started going back into football, which is probably one of the main reasons to why I'm still at Newport, because at the time I was just allowed to keep going back in, just get back into a routine, like get up in the morning, go to training, come home again, get up in the morning. And it gave me like the kind of reason to go, which this is what I mean by psychologically, it never made sense to me, is that I wouldn't go down to the supermarket down the road and I wouldn't walk down the street because I was too afraid of bumping into people. But yet I could easily, comfortably go to a training ground full of 25 lads and feel so comfortable because I
Yeah.
had my people around me. I had my football around me. And
I think that's that's most people though when they get older they
yeah,
become more cynical. I don't want to go to the supermarket. I don't I don't want to go anywhere. But on a Saturday, I don't like people generally. I don't like speaking to people. I'm quite quiet outside of this sphere.
yeah,
But at the same time, I do love speaking to people. I suppose I've got less tolerance for bullshit. I just can't, you know,
yeah,
I'm
100%.
really, really bad sometimes for people speaking without any substance. And it gets to the point where it's like, right, come on, I need a payoff here. So this needs to be something
There has to
coming
be
at the
something.
end of this sentence, because if it's not, it's gonna really fucking annoy me. So I need you to get to some sort of point where I get some benefit from this. But I think that it's like harkens back to what you said earlier in terms of most people that haven't even touched or been around the periphery of either someone with depression or been through like true depression. You know, being sad is part and parcel of being human, but that depression of, you know, brushing your teeth in the morning feels like doing an ultra marathon.
Yeah,
It's unthinkable how difficult that simple process should be. And like before you went through all this, your thought process was, well, just think of something happy.
yeah. And
And
that's exactly it.
and you can, and you quite often do think of something happy, but it's so far away from where you think you can get to. It's just it drives you further into that depression because it's like, well, you know, yeah, sport makes me happy, but I don't want to do that, and I can't do that, and then it's that spiral of getting you deeper into that proverbial hole.
No, 100%. And I think that's exactly where it did take me. Like it was because I can't do these things anymore and I'm watching training and I'm watching them play games, like I'm sitting there watching and I probably felt more anxious sitting watching than I did when I was playing because I can't affect it. And I'm watching
Mm.
all my ex teammates playing and I don't get to play anymore. My whole thing with football used to be, especially like because I got made captain of certain teams I was in, that I can be out there, I can help.
Yeah, yeah.
I can be out there, I can give me all and I can make a difference. Whereas when you're sitting there just watching, you can't make a difference. You can't be out there helping. Your voice can only do so much to tell somebody, do this, do that, instead of you being the one doing it. And I think for me, I'm glad now that I kept on going because
Mm.
it got to a point where Newport were doing really well at the time and they were in the playoff final. And I remember in the playoff semi final, it was a close game, but they ended up making it through. And I had a panic attack halfway through the playoff semi final because I went to the game. And I remember I watched the remainder of the second half into extra time um, on the team bus with headphones in because I couldn't be in a stadium full of people in an atmosphere because I felt as though my adrenaline was just rushing and my body just wasn't coping. And then after the game, I came home, I was exhausted, and I came in and argued with my mum straight away, saying, I'm not going to Wembley. No, can't be bothered. Not going to go anywhere near it. No, I'm not doing it. My mum said, you are going to go. And I said, no, I'm not. She said, oh, and my mum knows how to handle me. She was just like, all right, then don't go. And I was like, no, but I still want to go. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it was one of those things where I was fighting with myself because I was just like, I can't keep putting myself in these positions and situations, but I'm glad I kept doing it just because football will always be a big part of my life. I think
Yeah,
when you've played in it for so long, it'll always be a part, which I'm glad that it is. But when I was actually going in, the club doctor spoke to me about, Mark, have you ever thought about counselling? And I said, well, I don't need counselling. I said, like, I'm not feeling as though I'm going crazy. I said, like, I'm just struggling a bit. And it was every home game I'd go to the club doctor and I'd say to him, just listen to me chest for a little bit. And once he listened to it and go, Mark, everything's okay, I'd go, oh, right. It felt like a
yeah,
weight off my shoulders because it was reassurance. And I was constantly searching reassurance. But he said it became so much that he said it's almost like addictive that when he does start telling me everything's okay, I then stop believing him. Like within the
yeah,
space of a week, I remember I had a panic attack and I called another ambulance and everything like was really like heart rate through the roof. And then the minute the paramedics came into my room, my heart rate just settled and I calmed down. And it was almost like, well, why is it all just relaxed? And the more I spoke about it, you get told that it's basically you got over hospitalized when you were in hospital. You've seen a paramedic makes you feel safe. And then all of a sudden it's almost like, right, over to you now. You look after me like I'm exhausted type thing. And as all of that kept happening, when he spoke to me about counselling, he said, Mark, look, he said, I can give you an antidepressant. He said, I can give you a tablet. And he said, it can hopefully help. But he said, I want you to do it the longevity way. He said, I want you to exhaust every last avenue. And then he said, if everything comes out and you need that little bit of balance or whatever it is that they do, I look at it and I said, right, because it was him telling me and I trusted him, I was like, right, no problem. So I started doing counselling.
it must be. I just sorry to interrupt, Mark, but just thinking about obviously the setup that you're in at that point. You've got club doctors, you've got the all these facilities at your beck and call because of obviously the position that you got yourself into over your career. But then you've got to think, or what I do is I think like, what about Joe Bloggs that wasn't a pro
Mm-hmm.
footballer and that has gone through what
100%.
you've gone through, and he doesn't have this lifeline, and he doesn't have that doctor to listen to his chest to put his
Yeah.
mind at ease, and it must be. And and don't get me wrong, this is not me poo pooing doctors or surgeons or anything along those lines, but that sort of aftercare element is lacking, I think, in terms of. I know for a fact, like different scenario. The reason why I kind of know what you're talking about when you go through your leaking valve in your aorta. My granddad has that. He's had that for 20 odd years. He's got a false aorta. He's actually decided on himself to donate his body to donate his body to science to,
Nice.
I think, Liverpool University, because in his sadistic sense of humor, he thinks that they're going to open him up and think, what the fuck's going on here? Because he's got so many, like, he's got, I think, 3 false valves and then a false aorta. He's got angina. He's had a quadruple bypass. Got he's got
Sounds
skin
like
ca-
such a
oh,
man.
he's got skin cancer, kidney cancer. He's still kicking. He's 94, in fact, next week.
That's a great.
Yeah, and he's and he, in his sadistic mind, he thinks, "Oh, I'm going to have one last practical joke when they open me up and discover all these like different bits and bobs that aren't meant to be there." But that that's the sort of age that most people think heart problems sort of happen is, you know, latter on in life, 70, 80, when the heart's done a full shift and it's a bit knackered. But he never had access. Never had access. I mean, luckily my mum's a nurse, so he has a little bit of an access to a medical professional. But that sort of reassurance constantly just wasn't there for him, and it won't be there for, like, hundreds of thousands, millions of other people.
No,
Um
exactly. And I think that's where, even for myself, is where, like, now later down the line, the reason why I'd be so open and honest about everything and speak about, like, the horrible dark times and speak about the struggles and everything is more about the fact for those people to kind of realize that everything is going to be okay. Like, you just have to find something within yourself that you have survived the operation. Be proud of it. Like, don't look at it and go, "What do I do now?" It's almost be proud of the smaller things that at least you survived it. So if you can survive that, you can survive anything. So these things
Mm,
that you're feeling at the moment, you carry on in a path that is going to be a more positive way. Trust in yourself that you can do it and be more confident in yourself that you can. And what I learned over the time was when I started doing counseling was I struggled to speak about myself a
mm.
lot.
I
So
think people do. Most people, when it gets on, like, you see it, and I think it is very much a British thing, because when I lived in over in the States, it's a strange culture shock where everybody pats each other on the back and gives high fives and "You were amazing." They go,
yeah.
"Yeah, so were you." And it's like, it is very much like that. Or that's my experience anyway. It might have changed somewhat. But I think it's very much a British thing where somebody gives you a compliment and you're like, it feels awkward. You don't
Yeah,
like it.
yeah.
And
No,
it is
I definitely
it
agree with that. Like, I do think it's almost like I always based it down saying when you come from like a team sport, it was almost like when you see interviews of footballers, everything's about the team. The team
yeah.
were brilliant tonight. The team were great. No, but you got man of the match. Yeah, yeah, but I couldn't have done it if it wasn't for my teammates and wasn't for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
manager. Like, you will never sit there and take the praise or take anything. And when I sat and done the very first session with the counsellor again through FaceTime, we sat there and she was like, "So Mark, like, what is it that's going on? Like, explain to me, like, your, like, what's happened." So I'm speaking about like the open heart surgery, and it's just rolling off my tongue. And she just stopped me halfway through it, and she was just like, "Mark, do you realize what you're talking about?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm telling you, like, everything that's gone about me open heart surgery." And she was like, "Yeah," but she said, "You're speaking about it like you've just had a tooth pulled, like you've
Yeah.
normalized it for yourself, like you don't see the magnitude of everything that's just gone on in your life. Like, it's a life altering, changing operation." She said, "And you've had it twice." And she said, "You talk about it like it's nothing." Because in the middle, I was speaking about my voice went really croaky after my operation because a ventilator clipped the vocal cord. And she spoke to me saying, "But Mark, that's not normal." And what your body is probably putting up with is the fact of you're trying to normalize something. So your head is telling you it's normal and your body needs time to recover. Like, that's the whole meaning of being hard on yourself, that you're not seeing the severity of everything. You're trying to like play it off because I've been there, done that, and look, everything is fine. And you're trying to play the character of everything's going to be okay. I'm Mark O'Brien. I can get through anything. And that was not the case. And I didn't give me body the time to recover. And I'm not giving myself the time to recover, even mentally. And she asked me then to talk about, like, how do I actually feel and different things like that. And it was when I started speaking about saying how scared I was and some nights that I wouldn't sleep and the thoughts I was having. Like, I just remember and I just couldn't stop, like, feeling that lump in your throat and starting to get proper teary when I was mentioning myself, because I was just like, it's the one time that when you do talk about yourself, you don't feel as though, especially coming from football, that people are going to look at you and go, "Look at him being egotistical, talk. Oh, it's all
Mm,
about him." It was actually sometimes where I was actually able to sit there and go, "Yeah, like, I am actually scared. And you know what? I don't want to die."
mm.
And those types of feelings were never really said out loud because, again, when you're in that setting of football or when you're around your family, you're trying to be the positive person. Going, "Look, I will be okay. Just leave me alone, and everything will be fine." So, like, the more that I done counselling, I think the one thing that counselling done for me was it got me comfortable with speaking. It got me comfortable with being proud of the accolades that I've done, and it's got me comfortable of speaking about stuff that people don't want to talk about.
It's the
But
it's really I've mentioned this before, and I think it's such an underrated, quality to cultivate is that relationship with yourself and
Hmm.
with who you are. And most people don't. I enjoy it actually, and I've grown to enjoy it through therapy and stuff like that. Is the sort of 20-30 minutes. Maybe I do it on a Wednesday, so I train for 2 hours on a Wednesday. I'm there for 4 hours because my daughter trains beforehand, so I've got like 4 hours on a pitch on a Wednesday, generally freezing cold, and I'll drive home and I'll have no radio on, and just that 30 minutes of me almost, I don't say anything out loud to an extent, but me speaking to me and ruminating my own thoughts in my own,
Yeah,
I enjoy that moment because it's,
yeah,
and I mentioned before, like on a couple of other episodes, in terms of the one really good aspect I can see with things like AI, like ChatGPT and Gemini and all these AI systems, it's helped me who had, in my own opinion, a good relationship with myself through sort of 8 years of therapy. It's helped me improve that relationship with myself even more because I'm able to sort of bounce ideas, in essence, to an AI, but it's to myself. I'm just able to sort of bounce ideas and thoughts and, just pick up my phone and jot down a thought, and it kind of breaks down the thought. And I'm like, oh, no, no, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking more along these lines. And it helps you work through things really, really, really well. Um, but it's such, I, my missus, she likes to fill the void. She likes to fill the silence. She likes to sort of speak when no really needs to be said.
yeah,
It's you can just sit there and be in silence and enjoy the quiet. Um, and I think sometimes a lot of people struggle to have that honest conversation with themselves of, I'm not doing okay. I am
yeah,
I am lost. I am I'm fearful about this. Or on the flip side, like we've just discussed, fuck me, you did really well then. You were fantastic. Like, I'm so proud of you, proud of myself for doing X, Y, and Z. Um, and because they don't have that inner dialogue, it leads them to that sort of situation of looking for external gratification. And if they don't get it, it's like, oh, beat myself up about it. Um, but yeah, that therapy and counseling and stuff massively can help with
yeah.
just
Like,
putting a spotlight on that element.
yeah, I genuinely do think counseling can help massively, and it's not just for the fact of going something traumatic has to happen or something huge has to happen in your life. Going to just sit and talk to someone, like you say, what you could do with AI is just to bounce conversation. Like I seen counseling as in it's like a prompt. You get given a vague question and you have all the answers, and then you just start rambling and rambling and rambling, and all of a sudden you're answering something that you're expecting them to say, but you've done all the work. But the counselor sits there and just kind of gives you that little prompt in the right direction that you have all the answers. And that's the one thing I realized is that when I was speaking about stuff, every time I spoke, like I came away from it and I thought, oh no, like I do have the answers. And you just, even if it's only like a grain of sand of confidence back into yourself. And the more that I done, it was just building it back. And it got to a point where counseling just felt for me, it wasn't quite just getting me over that edge. And
Yeah, yeah.
I was still having panics because I was going through stuff when I was 16. I was going through the stuff that I never spoke about when I was 16 because football distracted me for the whole 11 years that I played. That I never dealt with the fact of having to keep it under wraps for so long through my life and going through every single season and having a heart scan at the end of that year, the pressure that would build and the stress that would build. And I was easily passed off because I got given the okay. It was almost like everything just came flooding out. And
Mm.
then I ended up going on to another podcast with two lads. One was an ex-professional footballer and one was an ex-professional golfer. And they asked me to go on and I sat and I spoke with them. And it was only after that they reached back out to me and said, Mark, we want to help you because we see like how much you're struggling. And they taught me it was like more counseling, but more specific to me in a sense of what loss is through professional football, or like losing the identity of what I felt I was to what I am now and different things. And I remember like we came away from like doing so many things. And when I actually spoke to these lads, it was the time where my mum would be sitting in here, and I'd go into the bedroom and I'd sit and talk. And then I'd come back out, and my ma literally said to me, Mark, it's the first time I can actually see a bit of life back in your eyes. Like that little bit of a spark that you can actually feel as though something is happening, and I feel excited and I'm happy because what I realized for me is that when I seen an example of it where it's not that he went through open heart surgery, but someone could understand me on the relation of professional football. And he's there telling me, Mark, it won't get easier for a little while. It will only get harder. And you're hearing the honesty of it. I actually felt as though I needed to hear that. Like, but I
Mm.
could look at him and go, well, he's done really well for himself. And you know what? I can do that. Like, almost have that example in front of me to kind of say, oh, well, you've been through it, so you get it. And rather than me having to sit and explain it, which I felt as though in counseling, I had to sit and explain certain things that the counsellor could only say, well, Mark, I could only imagine,
Yeah.
especially there's a sense of loss. But when someone can sit there and actually they were in the same shoes as you, so, like you can almost like look and go, yeah, like you get it. So I am going to 100% thoroughly listen to you because you've been there.
It's that most people's fear, or apprehension or anxiety or panic or whatever it may be comes through the fear of the unknown. They don't know
Hmm.
what's going to happen. So, most people say they've had an argument with the friend, and the apprehension and anxiety of meeting them next time isn't necessarily what was said the last time that you met them. It's right. Well, what if they now retaliate, and what if they now come back and do this? What if they did? It's all the what ifs, and then more often than not, what happens is nothing. Nothing happens, and you think, well, what the fuck was I worried about?
Yeah.
There was why, and that's the thing. It's that fear of the unknown, and especially coming from you in a position where you're in professional sport. It's your life for, well, all your life,
Hmm.
but at a professional level for that sort of 11 odd years, it's like not many people. I mean, you know, you look at the teams in the football league pyramid and you think, bloody hell, there's loads of players, but in the grand scheme of like 80 million people in this country, there's not that many, and there's not that many that have gone through what you've gone through. So, how do no, there's not many people that will
Yeah.
understand
And the thing is,
wholeheartedly.
I think, you know, one thing I did take from it was the fact of when I was listening to a lot of people, especially himself, that I didn't need people to understand. And this is one thing I've learned massively. I didn't need people to understand me heart surgery, and I didn't
Mm,
need people to understand me professional football background. And I think that's one thing that I was crying out for, that people need to understand open heart surgery. This isn't easy. And like I say, when you're in that negative way of thinking, I needed people to understand what it's like you don't understand what it's like to uh, retire from professional football. You don't know what it's like to have open heart surgery. I do. And you almost play the victim type thing. But one thing that came from it was realizing anybody can go through anything from a leg break to anything, and it's the feeling behind it. And that's what I started
mm,
to understand, that, look, I don't need people to understand the actual severity of the operation. I just need people to understand the feeling. And the
yeah,
more that I started to realize that, the more you open up and go, well, panic attacks, everybody has them.
mhm,
Depression, anybody can have it. Anxiety, anybody can have it. Now, I didn't have all of these because of open heart surgery and because of professional football. I had these because I was going through something, and other people can have it. Now, the one thing that I learned is that people sit and compare
yeah,
your situation to my situation, and they will sit there and kind of go, well, yours is worse than mine. So, look, there's no point me telling you. Whereas, no, but whatever was your threshold to make you feel depressed, and whatever your threshold was to make you feel anxious or stressed or whatever it might have been, well, then that's yours. And then mine is mine, which was the open heart surgery. But there's no comparison on going, I was worse off. I have a worse depression or I have a worse anxiety than you because of what happened.
yeah,
All the same thing. So you put everything on an even playing field and say, talk about the emotion behind it. And the more that I done that, and the more that I just opened up about those horrible times, the more people can sit and understand me. The understanding open for when I mention open heart surgery, I mention professional football, not many people can understand that because, like you say, it's a small minority of people that go through it. But if I sit and speak about the emotion, everybody can understand it and everybody
Yeah,
can
yeah.
understand exactly what I've gone through. And that for me was something that was like a light bulb thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I still had the same similar struggles, but it was there was a time when I went back and after I finished speaking to those lads and you come away with a lot. And the one thing I came away with was we sat and had one evening of talking about like what was Mark O'Brien the footballer? Go and explain Mark O'Brien the footballer to us. Because again, they say it's a loss of identity. And I said, well, look, I was a captain. I felt fit and strong. I said I felt like I was a leader and like I felt as though like I looked well in myself and all these things. And they were like, right. So what about Mark now? And I said, well, I'm a nobody now. Basically, I don't have football. I don't have anything. And then spoke about it that little bit more. And the one thing that like that he came out with at the end, I said, I always sticks with me. He said, it's not the job that made you a success. He said, it's you that makes your job a success. So he said, that person that made your football successful, that you see yourself as, that is you right now that can make that success anywhere else without football.
Yeah, football's just something else. It's not. Yeah,
And with that like even though it sounds so simple in your own mind, it's like for me at the time, it made me go, oh, so it is me all the time, like me who I am. Like I can go and do it, and it's like you say, just that little bit of a switch that then I started to kind of progress a little bit more, and then like you say, you have a couple of setbacks with training or exercise and stuff like that. So as all of this was panning itself out, I ended up um, just pushing the boat out every so often. And I went on a little bit of a speaking course, done that, which then that was another element of a kind of, I can do it because even during that, you have to sit down on the very first day and you go through the timeline of your life from when you were born to what you remember to this day. And the top line is write out all the good that has happened. Bottom line, write out all the bad. And you start then being able to see that you can piece it all together to go, well, because of that bad that happened, this came out of it. But when this and this happened, that happened along the way. You started realizing that every single thing along the way has led me to here, regardless of what it is. And y- it was looking back at it thinking, well, if I never went and played for that team, that manager wouldn't have seen me to then take me here to then do this and do that. And you're actually able to see your life as a story.
yeah.
And I
And
love,
it's so. I think it's so important that there's loads of different situations that happen in most people's lives, but anybody that's listening to this, like you look at where you're at now and you might not be happy and you might be, unhappy with where you are in life, but every single decision, whatever you've made, so say you're in an unhappy phase in your life and you're thinking and you're wishing back to maybe 2-3 years ago where you were really, really happy. Now, you wouldn't have had that happiness if nothing bad would have happened in the previous, because you wouldn't have any differentiation between what is good and what is happy and what is bad and what is sad.
yeah,
So it's that, and then you've got to realize that you know you have to have the lows, like you said right at the beginning of this episode, in terms of the the roller coaster that you've been on.
yeah.
You wouldn't ever realize what a drop is and what a climb is without being in them peaks and troughs within your life. And it's so important to have that light and have that dark contrast to understand and appreciate when the good times come.
Yeah,
You get to savor it a little bit more.
100%. And it's still the same stuff where it's like when you do go through the dark times, like everybody uses all like the different quotes of like going through any sort of kind of feeling is like the weather. A storm will always pass and all these different things. But when you actually live it that little bit and realize it, that every single thing that you've done along that way has put me in this position, has led me to these people, has led me to this way. And you know what? The next choice that comes your way. And the one thing that my dad said to me after my operation was, well, Mark, like the world's your oyster now. Anything like is all new to you. Like it's almost like you begin to live again and like
Yeah.
live. he said, say yes to everything. And again was, yeah, but I wouldn't be good at that. And I don't know if I'd be good at that. Like all I've ever had is football. And my dad said, but then how do you know unless you try? He said, you could try
True.
it, and you could be terrible, but at least you've done it and at least you know. So like then different things came about, like commentary for BBC Wales asked me to do some live commentary and I was like, yeah, why not? Then I get asked to go and speak in front of a school. Yeah, no problem, I might as well. And everything just led on from that. Whereas it seems as though there was no plan to it, but saying yes to things in the mode that I was in was almost like I started to see everything in life as an opportunity. Like
Mm.
I look at it and go, I can sit and be the person of going, well, do you know what? I don't get to play football and I am retired. And yeah, it was at 27 and I got cut short. And like you can use all of the negative side of the story. Or I can look and I say, well, look at, like the world is my oyster. Like I can say yes to whatever I want. Everything is new. Like I see it as excitement. Like that's life. And if something doesn't good, like come of it because of I wasn't good at it, well, do you know what? At least I tried it. And that's what the way my dad said it to me. And as that,
And you're still at that point, you're still only 27. You're still like,
no, exactly.
you
And
know,
this,
there's it's not like you're 70 odd year old and on the
yeah.
knackers yard.
And that's the thing though. It was only when I went on that speaking course that like you've got people who are early 40s and different stuff, and some of them in their late 30s, and you're sitting there. But because I have retired from football, and in football at the age of 30, you're an older,
You're
experienced
done.
player.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like I'm sitting in that room, and it brings back the realization where I was the youngest of the group, and they were just like, "Well, Mark, look, you're the baby of the group," and different things like that. And then you stand up there and say what your whole life story is, and people sit there and kind of go, "Wow, that
Mm.
has happened to you." And I was like, well, yeah, but look at yous have gone on and played in World Cups, and there was an Olympian there who has won gold medals for rowing and stuff like that. And I'm looking at them all and I'm just thinking, yous all have a life and great stories. Like all I've had is a League Two, played in the championship for Derby. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but then I started to understand that it's not about like it was doing that whole comparison thing. Well, you've done this. Why would people listen to me? And the more I just started to get comfortable in my own self and kind of go, well, this is my life. It's got nobody else's life will have to go through this. But at the same time, if I can make an example of this to kind of be the life that it is and to share it and express it in the best way that I can possible, just to be open and honest about it, well, then whoever does hear it and whoever does listen to it, I hope they can take little things from it just as an example to say, well, if that fella can do it, so can I. Because it isn't anything special, or there's nothing that I was born with special to make me this person. It was more about the fact of, well, then, do you know what? That little bit of belief of just trusting yourself and not giving up on yourself, that is probably the biggest part, because I do feel as though a lot of people give up that trust in themselves to,
Mm.
like, they look for that external validation or that external help. Whereas sometimes it's like, right, get comfortable sitting having the horrible conversation with yourself. When you're in a tough or a difficult or a terrible situation, well, start taking responsibility that it was you that put yourself there, regardless. Because I look at it and go, because even if it is that external person that makes you feel bad, but it's your choice to be with that person, or it was your choice to get involved with that person. And like, you can go about it in all these other ways, but it's those different.
Accountability. It's accountability. It's the sort. I mean, I do this. This is a practice, and anybody can do this. I don't think many people will do this, to be honest. But this is something that I do. So when I'm feeling in that phase of stagnation or something, you know, you get that sort of underlying feeling of something needs to happen, something needs to change. I'll just go on a fast. I will go on a water fast for 3 days just to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, just to sort of change something up and see. Sometimes nothing happens and everything stays the same. I'm just fucking hungry.
Yeah.
but most of the time, what tends to happen is them the wheels get greased and something starts to move, and it's just because I've shaken up that monotonous routine of whatever got me into the position that I wasn't happy or comfortable in. I create more discomfort to force movement.
Yeah.
And it happens. It's quite funny how it happens, and it's generally around the end of day two of where I either get narky or like clarity comes, and something just changes. It's a really good technique. So if anybody wants to try it, be my guest. I know
Yeah.
it's
I,
not easy, but it is good.
I was going to say,
Um,
I don't see myself not doing that.
so I want to end with one question, and it is a big one, but it's generally, it'd be easy enough to answer. If because of what you've been through and whatnot, and I think there's more recognition of these sorts of conditions within professional sport. We've seen it more and more so, and especially on, sort of not poo pooing you, Mark, but like when Ericsson, Christian Ericsson,
Yeah, yeah.
the world, was it the Euros or World Cup?
The
Euros, I
Euros,
think
yeah.
it was. When that happens on such a world stage, and people then see his recovery and playing for Manchester United and stuff, and it kind of shows people, Joe Public, that it can happen to anybody. It's not
Hmm.
just necessarily, if you're fit, you're safe.
Yeah.
Um, if somebody at 16 now is going through what you went through, and they found out they have a heart defect or something wrong with the heart, and they have to have open heart surgery, what's what's the one piece of advice that you would like to give him directly, or her?
Do you know what? It's funny enough that I actually spoke to someone on the phone 4 weeks ago. His dad emailed me. He was a Newport fan and he was going in for his second open heart surgery. And I think he's 21. And he wanted to speak to me to settle his nerves. And I remember sitting there with him saying, well, look, this is something that you've been through before. But I said, if there's anything that comes out of this, and I said, when you wake up, and I always use the same things. I'm going, when you wake up and when you're on the other side and when you are in recovery, always keep thinking that you're past the worst now. It's only going to get better. So it's when you're going in for something, and even like you say, to sit with a 16-year-old, I would literally say, this is the beginning of the start of the rest of your life. Like, this is the beginning of your life now. Like, this will be the beginning of the best things that'll ever happen for you. Now, I said, you'll struggle. Like, the one thing I always put behind a lot of stuff is the honesty to kind of say, you will have doubts, but the one thing that you need to do is always have that belief when you are on the other side of it to kind of go, well, I've made it. To just keep going, well, I can actually do it. It might be a tough day, but I can do it because I'm alive now to have the recovery. And it's always that is the fact of going, once you're in the recovery side of it, everything else is a breeze because you have that belief. So keep your belief strong. That's the one thing that I've always thought about myself was why I got through a lot was, yeah, I had a lot of great support around me. And yeah, I did have struggles. And when I went through them, I had enough belief around me to push me. But the one thing I do take from myself is that I have a very strong belief in myself that even if a day is tough or the weeks and months are tough, do you know what? There's enough of belief in me to kind of go, but it will change and things will get that little bit better. And keeping that belief strong, I don't think anything can break a person. Like, I genuinely don't think anything can take that. When you have that confidence or when you have that belief in yourself that might have gotten knocked for whatever reason, it's not about thinking to yourself, oh, that's me done now. It's the fact of going, right, but just have those quiet words with yourself of going, nah, I've got this. Like, yeah, I might be crying and yeah, I might be moaning to people and I might feel like I'm in agony and pain, but I've got it. Like, when you're in bed at night and you're laying there yourself, it's just that little bit of, yeah, do you know what? Well done. Like, we're still in it. We're still going. And that is the one, that's the only thing I can kind of, I can say to anyone going in for a surgery or just anybody in their life is that
Mhm.
little bit of going, your day might be difficult and you don't want to sit and you might want to say, I want to forget about today. But sit there by the end of it and just have that little bit of pride in yourself to go, but we done it. Like, it might have been a terrible day and we might reminisce and go, that was terrible. Work was shit, blah, blah, and all these things. And he said this to me. Whereas, but by the end of that day, I've done it. Do you know what? We met and have that pride in yourself of just being proud of yourself. Don't need it anywhere else. Just be proud of yourself.
Love that. So thank you first and foremost for joining. It's been awesome. I think we're up to about 3 hours now, which is it's a long listen. And for those that have made it all the way to the end, thank you very, very much. But yeah, massively appreciate it. I think you are an inspiration, and I think it's refreshing. The honesty is refreshing from, you know, I know we've mentioned it within the episode where I always hate it at the end when players have played shit. Things are out, and you get the interview, and it's like, oh yeah, well we just weren't at it today, and we
Hmm.
just be honest.
Yeah.
Come out and say, yeah, we were shit. I had a curry last night, and I couldn't be bothered playing.
Yeah.
I felt sluggish, and it's so refreshing when it comes out. So I really appreciate your honesty, your candor with it, and I think it'll help countless people that are either going through or have been through or are trying to get through whatever. It's not necessarily open heart surgery, but it could be anything difficult within their life. It
Yeah.
kind of gives them that inspiration. So if people want to find you, follow you, see what you're up to, where do they go?
I would say it's probably everything goes through the Instagram side of stuff, LinkedIn and different things, but mainly I'd say active on Instagram more than anything.
What's your Instagram handle?
It is M O'Brien 1992.
There we go. Right. Thank you very, very much, Mark. Thank you,
No
everybody,
problem
for
at all.
listening.
Appreciate it.
See you on the next time.
Yeah, exactly.